Here on the AccuWeather Network and also on YouTube Live and our TikTok simulcast. We're going to stay up with you commercial free on YouTube and on TikTok. Feel free to ask questions about the storm. We have a team working here at AccuWeather to stay on top of this beyond the forecasters. Just a few dozen yards from me updating the forecast information that populates your AccuWeather app, AccuWeather.com. But also we have the Weather Matrix, Jesse Farrell, who's going to be helping to answer some of the questions in the chat and some others as well. And big picture, we're very, very concerned about severe weather. You know, you look at this at first glance, your eye may be drawn to the northeast, and there are some severe storms in the northeast, but the Midwest is our main concern. In fact, when we look at our risk area for this evening and for tonight, there are two separate zones, but if we look at the Midwest, this is the main event. We have a separate map out for the northeast, and we have a high risk, that's 3 out of 4 of the AccuWeather 4-tiered severe threat index for areas from around Kirksville, Missouri, where we checked in with Tony Lawback last night. We had nasty storms, a tornadic storm moved through that area, and also right up through Chicago, where also last night you were hit hard. We had a 72 mile per hour gust at Chicago Midway, and there was a lot of noise there among the chat from those of you in Chicago who endured that storm. We also had storms roll into Michigan. Well, tonight we got the same area. I don't want to fixate on the past, but I bring that up because the same area, northern Missouri right through Chicago into Michigan, is again at risk. If there's a change, there's a little less concern up into Minnesota and northwest Wisconsin, but we have a lot of moving parts here, and we have some big concerns. So we have right now kind of a preliminary storm moving through the area near Kankakee, which, if we had to name one town that was hit hard at the very beginning of the severe weather season this year, probably Kankakee, with that tornado that moved through portions of town, brought some large hail, and Tony was on that storm. We're going to check in with him as well. That was back a couple of months ago. I think that was in March. But other storms will return to this area. So the area around Davenport and up into northern parts of Illinois will again be at risk for severe storms. Let's take a look at the high-res radar data for this Chicago storm. And it's not really Chicago. It's maybe the distant southeastern suburbs now, really into more of Indiana territory. Lake County, Indiana, Porter County, Indiana. Severe thunderstorm winds, Newton County, Indiana as well. These storms have also been intense. Now, the volume of wind damage reports from today, not yet on the threshold or not quite as intense as what we saw yesterday, but we do expect to see things really escalate, and tonight will be more intense. This evening will be more intense than last evening in Chicago. Sugar Grove, 56 mile per hour gust at 2:52 p.m. This was a nasty one. Leland, Illinois, 65 mile per hour gust there north of Leland. So that's pretty intense wind. And Marcellus, 48, Triumph, 52 mile per hour winds. There will be more behind that gets more intense. I'm going to hop a little west to Davenport here to other radar sites. And we've had some flash flooding in Dubuque, up into Dubuque, Iowa. Emergency management reporting roads closed due to flooding. All right. Well, we want to check in with storm chaser and meteorologist Tony Lawback, joining us now from Monmouth, Illinois, the man on the move. So, Tony, I need to check, brush up on my geography. Where is Monmouth, Illinois?
Well, it's funny you said man on the move, because I was hoping to challenge you to say man on the move in Monmouth in Illinois. See, I can't even do it once. I was going to make you do it 5 times. Monmouth, all right, if you draw a line straight south from the Davenport Quad Cities area, I am just to the west of Galesburg in Monmouth with the man on the move. Look at that. I did it. It just took twice. But Kankakee, by the way, Geoff, was on March 10th. I remember that date very well because I probably still have hailstones melting in my car from that day. But hopefully we're not going to be dealing with 6-inch diameter hail today. I am, as I mentioned, here in Monmouth, south of the Quad Cities. We've set up a little further south than I think initially when I got up this morning I was planning to. We knew the big caveat today was going to be the line of storms that rolled through. I was up at 9 o'clock this morning, despite getting in at 2 a.m. yesterday, expecting that squall line to come through the Davenport area with some gusto, but things weakened pretty quickly. But the rain held tight, and that was kind of the caveat, which kept me out of what was originally going to be my target further north up toward what was the town I was looking at? Rockford and Freeport. And as the afternoon kind of progressed, I decided I was going to head down here where things have cleared out a little bit here. If you see my dash cam, you see people running in front of it. That wasn't exactly what I meant to show, but that's how it works. But you're starting to see the dark clouds of some of the cells that we're starting to track that have developed on the western side of the Mississippi River. That would put them in Iowa. So just between Mount Pleasant and Burlington, those are the storms that are starting to get going in this area that has seen a little bit more instability build since most of the rain cleared out here several hours ago. We have multiple storms that are trying to fire right now, and that is what we are watching. Tornado watch, originally in effect till 3, that has been replaced with a watch that now goes till 9 o'clock in this area. So really, basically, I would say southeast of a line from Rockford to the Quad Cities, to Ottumwa. That is kind of the area that right now we're focusing a lot of our attention on for the potential for severe weather. Still uncertain exactly how these storms are going to take advantage of this environment. That's going to be a big question. Whether or not we just remain isolated and discrete, we talk about that all the time. I know it's a broken record when we have these high-end days where we talk about the difference between potentially a lot of tornadoes versus a lot of damaging wind. Unfortunately, it's how nature works. So that is going to be the thing we're going to be watching early on, similar to yesterday where we had storms that remained discrete. We saw multiple tornadoes out of those. We'll see again what happens this evening. I'm here in a good position. We are tracking all the weather. As you can see, we got storm chasers from all over converging. We all had pretty much the same idea, it looks like. So it's going to be a busy day down here, and we look forward to bringing you live coverage here over the next several hours.
All right, Tony. Well said. We appreciate it. Be safe out there. We had a lot of action yesterday, and apples to apples, there is a lot more wind shear with this setup than yesterday's across the Midwest and the Great Lakes area here. So we have a lot of concerns. So we got again, radar. Tony's in position not for any individual storm yet. He's in position tracking what will likely develop upstream, and upstream of him, we're looking at areas maybe near Quincy or up into areas east of where some of the activity that was very intense yesterday broke out into parts of Missouri. Hey, I wanted to take us into the Northeast here. I think there will be times in the next few hours when we have highly populated areas in the Northeast facing severe storms, but there may be more very intense and, again, life-threatening storms in parts of the Midwest at the same time. So there may be moments when we want to talk about the Northeast, but we're going to be tracking tornadoes in progress farther west, perhaps. So right now, in the Northeast, up and down areas west of Interstate 99, relatively newer interstate in the past couple decades there, that's the I-99 corridor, storms are rumbling. So between Pittsburgh and the area near Johnstown or Altoona, so along U.S. Route 22, we're facing some nasty storms. Some of these have been severe, and we are seeing some, in fact, the greater volume of wind damage reports so far today have come in from these storms in the Pittsburgh metro. Coriopolis, PA, there in Allegheny County, not far from the Moon Township area near the airport. A tree fell across the road onto 2 people. Unknown about the status of any injuries there, but that, again, was a nasty storm. We're also taking you north up into Evans City, PA, in Butler County, trees on wires. Harmony, PA, in Butler County, tree on power lines. Hookstown, Beaver County, US 30 closed in both directions because of downed trees and wires. Into other areas of Brooke County in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, trees down on one road up into Flushing, Ohio. And Belmont County, trees and power lines down. Very common theme into Greene County, far southwest Pennsylvania, tree down. And now we have a severe thunderstorm rumbling right into Morgantown. And last weekend, we had there were injuries tied to a college baseball game in Morgantown when a severe weather rolled through. And there were 6 tornadoes last Saturday evening. The Morgan Wallen concert was canceled there in Pittsburgh, and people were, saying some people were scratching their heads, and the weather wasn't awful in Pittsburgh, but 6 tornadoes touched down in the vicinity in southwest Pennsylvania that evening. And again, that's a tough one. But up into the Finger Lakes of New York, so Monroe County, northwest of Rochester, and also Genesee County, a severe thunderstorm warning just north of Batavia. Along the Thruway in Ontario County and southern Wayne County, a severe thunderstorm warning in progress, moving through the heart of the western Finger Lakes, Penn Yan, and down into areas near Urbana and north of Bath, New York. Severe weather there. looking for reports. Not seeing as many filed by the Weather Service yet in Buffalo compared to what's going on down to the south in Russell, PA, and Warren County, Union City, and Erie County, large tree limb down. And there's also some severe weather, a little renegade cell popping out into Connecticut. So we've had some reports here, a couple, Ancram, New York, tree on power lines, and so forth. And as I clear that out of the way, you can see this is moving into Waterbury, highly populated real estate, Waterbury to New Haven. Look out, severe thunderstorm in progress right through Plymouth and Litchfield County, moving into New Haven County, Connecticut. So that's the status in the Northeast. A quick look at our severe weather risk area for the Northeast. I'm going to switch over to a different product here. So thanks for bearing with me here as I bring up, that's the main risk area for the Midwest, but we also have concerns in the Northeast. So let's bring that up here. And here through this evening, severe weather increasingly likely as some of those storms in the interior move to east of I-81, closing in on I-95. We're going to do this again tomorrow, by the way, in the Northeast. So a quick look ahead to the Friday risk area. Well, that's a concern as well. So we're going to be doing this again live at the same time tomorrow, 4 to 8 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Live. But in the meantime, all eyes will be primarily on the Midwest as storms begin to ramp up. All right, we're clear on the AccuWeather network. I wanted to take us into the first tornado warning, and we'll do this with the network folks as well in a short time. So the first tornado warning of the afternoon. There were several this morning. But I'm going to bring up the chat and want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Overall, this new tornado warning here, I'm going to switch over to there's a feed here on Twitter that gives us the exact population. 21,000 people here in this new tornado warning. And I also want to bring up one more resource here so we can track the best radar site for this more obviously, as it appears that the Davenport radar site is going to be our best set of eyes for this one as this loops. And again, there was a little bit of a temporary blip there with the radar, but at this point, it looks like everything is functioning properly, and we are dealing with a hook. It's a small scale but strengthening supercell that has that curved shape to it. And as we switch over to the velocity data for this cell, we're looking at this from a bit of a distance away, but there's a very, very clear couplet with this one. So by the numbers, and this just helps me give you a little bit of a better sense as to how high up in the atmosphere we're looking. We're looking 109 miles from the radar site. This is that same area we talked about quite a bit last night when we were dealing with storms in Kirksville, where there's no really, really close radar site, but the best we could do is use the closest radar site, which is going to give us a scan probably about 8 to 10,000 feet up into the atmosphere. This is right over Antioch. So this is Antioch, Missouri, and we're looking at a moderately strong area of rotation here. Quick math here, 85 mile per hour gate-to-gate shear. When I say gate-to-gate shear, we're talking about inbound wind in the green, outbound wind in the red. I want to keep my head on the swivel and do better about keeping my eyes on some of your YouTube comments and so forth. So I'm just, bear with me here for a quick second while the network is still in a commercial break. We're going to dig into this rotating thunderstorm here shortly with our AccuWeather network viewers. But I want to bring up the chat here so I can access this very quickly and easily throughout the course of the evening. So I see some of your comments here. And also from Jesse Farrell, currently 10 severe thunderstorm warnings in effect here, 52 since this morning. People wondering about Massachusetts. So Massachusetts, there is some severe risk there. Storms will be rumbling into western Massachusetts first. We talked about that storm that is severe in a part of Connecticut. And, we're going to come back to this tornadic storm in a little bit here in 1 minute with the AccuWeather network returning. But a lot of our, we have a real strong presence in the Northeast here at AccuWeather, partly because of our long-standing relationship with some of the major TV market stations there. And some of you are tuned in for the Northeast storms. So Massachusetts, the severe risk is going to be kind of clipping western parts of the state initially. There's a little bit of development upstream here that has been clipping into the southwestern part of the Berkshires, but nothing ominous or urgent right now. We may see some additional storms, though, this evening into more of Massachusetts. I don't think they're going to have a tremendous amount of firepower. We are more concerned about other areas. And just to kind of close the loop on that, you could see we're including southwestern Mass in our moderate risk, but not most of the state. Farther east, we kind of step it down to some risk and a little bit lower. The AccuWeather Network is about to rejoin us here. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. I was just chatting with some people here on YouTube asking about the status of severe weather in places like Massachusetts and so forth. But right before we went to break, you may have seen a brand new and the first afternoon tornado warning of the event. And this is straddling the far northeast. It's not a big warning, but it covers parts of 3 states. We got Missouri, we've got the western Illinois part, and then we have the Iowa corner of, this is the extreme southeast corner of Iowa, Keokuk. Let's get into the Davenport radar site, and this radar site is going to give us the best set of eyes on this storm as it is ramping up and beginning to rotate. It's moderate rotation, but it's a pretty strong signal of rotation here with this, as the velocity scan is showing that, again, as this loads, we're dealing with a pretty obvious rotation couplet with this storm. I'm just waiting for the data to repopulate here, but there it is. And the green is where a portion of the storm is moving toward the radar site. The red is where part of the storm is moving away from the radar site. The radar site's way, way up in Davenport, Iowa, about 110 miles from this location. So that's giving us a scan of kind of the upper part of the storm, at least, well, the middle, low to mid part of the storm. But I would say the middle part of it, about 10 miles up into the atmosphere. 8 to 10, I should say, 8 to 10,000 feet. 8 to 10,000 feet, so about 2 miles up into the atmosphere, 8 to 10,000 feet up. So it's rotation about 2 miles up there, but that can translate down to the ground in a more focused way. So about 2 miles up, there is some pretty strong rotation. And the contrast is about 84 miles per hour from the inbound to the outbound there in Clark County. So take shelter. That's the big message here. If you're in Antioch, St. Patrick, Wayland, up into Keokuk. Keokuk is the larger population center. We can give you some numbers here. This is a tornado warning for 21,000 people, and the largest community in the area is Keokuk. There is also concurrently a flash flood warning. Now, sometimes people say, flash flood warning, avoid low spots. Tornado warning, get to the low spots. This is cognitive dissonance. You're telling me to do 2 opposing things at the same time. The tornado threat's the more urgent risk if you're in the area from Antioch east to Keokuk. But just use common sense. And if you have a basement that's not flooded now, get into the basement. That's the safest place to be. A tornado is going to be a short-term risk. If you have a basement that does happen to be flooded because of flash flooding, maybe go to the steps or stay in the small interior room. Don't go into the water. There are electrical hazards and so forth, and you don't want to get down in there. But just be wise. Keep your head on a swivel. And it's all about just situational awareness is a phrase we use in the fire service, just about being aware of your surroundings and knowing what's going on. And that's the best way to handle a case when you're both under a flash flood warning and a tornado warning at the same time. The tornado warning is the most urgent thing, but the flash flooding is going to be a big hazard if you live in a low-lying area or if you're driving especially. So get down to the lowest floor of your home as long as it's not flooded. If it's prone to flooding, maybe stay near the steps in the basement. All right, let's go to AccuWeather correspondent, our good friend Bill Waddell in the northeastern U.S. in Allentown, PA. Bill, we're concerned about not the next hour, but maybe 2 or 3 hours from now in Allentown, PA. Bill, can you hear me okay?
Those 3. Yes, I can hear you, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we got you now, Bill. So, Bill, I know you're ahead. You're well ahead of things right now as storms are still in western PA. But what's your game plan as storms begin to move on into the Lehigh Valley this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. This is where we're starting off here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, talking with the meteorologist at the AccuWeather Global Weather Center. Again, as these storms are going to be intensifying as they move closer to this area through western and central Pennsylvania. You can see right now, everybody's talking about the heat and the humidity at this hour. They know storms are coming, but they still got some time. So we checked out the splash pad here. We're talking about 94 degrees here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, with an AccuWeather real feel of 104 degrees. That's why there's so many kids, parents, and babysitters out at the splash pad trying to cool down. But Jeff, you know, and the other storm chasers at AccuWeather, when it comes to chasing storms, completely different situation in the Midwest compared to the East Coast. So when we have severe storms moving through a region like this with all those heavily populated areas, especially when we're talking about the afternoon and the evening commutes, it's tough. Sometimes you're just stuck in traffic. You cannot get very far very fast. So it's all about pre-positioning, trying to get ahead of the storm. So we're keeping a very close eye on how those storms are developing and moving through western and central Pennsylvania before they get here to southeast PA and the Lehigh Valley. Geoff, what's really interesting is that there are World Cup events that are just starting and opening up for fans today and tomorrow in Philadelphia and in New York City. A lot of those are outdoor events. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on those because we're talking about, people trying to get outside, enjoy this warm weather, especially at those World Cup events. But when you have storms coming through, especially with gusty winds, that can send tents flying, that can create a huge mess. And then you add the lightning layer on top of it. So it doesn't even have to be a severe storm. Lightning is always a serious concern. So that's why we're reminding people to make sure you have the AccuWeather app downloaded. You're going to get those lightning alerts when that lightning strikes within the 10-mile radius to give you that heads up. And when we're talking about these big outdoor events, thousands of people heading out to them with summer storms rolling through, that is a big public safety concern. So just telling people, be aware. Again, here in southeastern Pennsylvania, we still got a few more hours before those storms really fire up. And people need to have a game plan, and especially a backup plan if those storms start rolling through.
All right. Well said there. AccuWeather correspondent Bill Waddell. Bill, we appreciate it. It's hot out there. Flirting with record highs in Philadelphia today, and Allentown not far behind. So there's the risk area, intense rainfall. Hey, I'm seeing a lot of questions on the chat, people wondering about the Midwest, so I do want to hop back that way. Both of these areas, the Northeast and the Midwest, facing a significant risk of severe storms. But somebody asked, I'm in Chicago. Should I prepare? What about Milwaukee? Yeah, you absolutely should be prepared for severe weather this evening. In fact, I could show you the watches. While there's nothing urgent in most of those areas right now, we will be seeing things ramp up. Here is a look at the ongoing watches. And you'll notice you are under a tornado watch in Chicago. Brand new watch issued for more of Northern Virginia up through parts of upstate New York. But that tornado watch here is in effect until 9 o'clock Central Time there in Chicago. We're going to be dealing with severe weather ramping up involving the tornado risk as well. Stay with us. All right. We are now on a commercial break on the AccuWeather Network, and I could show you a future animation here for how this is likely to play out to maybe answer some of your questions there for Chicago and other areas. Storms rumbling east through the evening. And then I'm going to maybe go back a little bit and just scrub through this manually because as we move forward around probably 7 or 8 p.m., 7 p.m., within that hour in Chicago, we expect to see some severe weather in damaging winds and also initially some tornado threats. We have a red map here that's going to show the greatest risk area for tornadoes. And I'm going to share this with our network viewers here when they come back to kind of reframe the conversation toward the more of the Midwest severe. But that's a big concern. So the severe weather risk area that we're most concerned about for the Midwest is going to involve the risk for tornadoes in northern parts of Illinois. I'm trying to locate this graphic in the system. I'm not seeing it at the moment, but I do need to bring it in here. Here it is. All right. So the graphic that I was going to show the viewers here when they come back from break, northern Illinois, far southern Wisconsin, and southeast Iowa. This is where we have the greatest tornado risk. We're going to see a transition from tornadoes to mainly straight-line wind with isolated tornado threats as we go deeper into the evening. So it's going to be a kind of a handoff and a bit of a transition here from multi-pronged risk involving tornadoes, damaging wind, and hail, to mainly wind with some hail and isolated tornadoes later on. In just about 15 seconds here, the AccuWeather Network is going to rejoin us. So I'm going to reframe things a little farther west to talk more about the severe threat escalating in northern Missouri and beyond. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are tracking a pair of tornado warnings now, and they unfortunately are very, very close to where we had tornado threats last evening. Before I jump into the radar, I wanted to show you this graphic where we're most concerned about tornadoes this evening. And it's probably the early half of the evening. We're going to go from a tornado wind, and hail threat to mainly a wind threat with isolated tornadoes and still some hail later into the evening and at night. So it's the first part of this storm as the storms approach and move into the Chicago area. Davenport, Rockford, Milwaukee, all at risk, at Madison as well, of tornado threats, and into Chicago too. Let's go back to radar here. And I wanted to show you the newest warning. We were already somewhat impressed by just the cohesiveness of the rotation here with that storm moving into Keokuk. But now, unfortunately, it's Kirksville again with an ongoing threat for a tornado. Let's go into that view here from, we were going to have to make some tough decisions with radar, as Jesse Farrell was mentioning earlier. We're going to have to kind of play jockey for position here with many different ongoing threats. But as we take a look at this ongoing risk for a tornado here, we're looking at this from the Davenport, Iowa perspective, from northeast to southwest. And here you can see it's a distance from the radar site, admittedly. But here we have, a little bit of, you know what? Let me check out another view here. Let's go to Kansas City here. Kansas City, looking from the southwest to the northeast. Here you can see what has been. It's actually outbound versus inbound, and then outbound there. So perhaps the greatest risk entering the area near and west of Kirksville, with some degree of rotation there. But when I look at this, there's a lot of outbound and inbound. That would be an anticyclonic tornado. They're pretty rare. We need to keep an eye out for this area regardless, as there is a tornado threat north of Kirksville. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a break. I'm going to look at this from another perspective as well, from St. Louis. And man, these are all a distance from the radar site, but that's just the nature of it. That's 159 miles away. I think that the Davenport radar site is going to be the best bet for this one, given our situation. And I'm just checking a few other resources here. Thanks for being patient as we're hopscotching around here, different things. This warning has 5,300 people. It doesn't officially include downtown Kirksville, but it's the north side of town, up into areas near Greentop in far northern Missouri. 5,300 people under that tornado warning. And again, we're kind of lost between distant radar sites. And a better look at this here from the Davenport radar site here. Look at it from northeast to southwest. What we see when we bring this up, there is a more obvious zone of rotation here within the Keokuk cell. Green is inbound, red is outbound. This is what we expect to see. 99% of tornadoes here in North America rotate counterclockwise. Not everyone, but most of them do. And you might hear in my voice a little bit of hesitation here when I was on the network there about interpreting this other cell, because red here is outbound, green is inbound, and I'm seeing a lot of rotation that might be perhaps, at least in the central part of this warning, anticyclonic. What would make a little more sense to me would be this zone. That would be cyclonic rotation, rotating counterclockwise. That's how we typically do it here. So it's broad rotation, but I think the big handcuff is that we're looking so far from the radar site that we're not able to see up close. And even the radar pulse, the beam, it begins to broaden as you go more than 100 miles out. So the language here used by the Weather Service is talking about radar indicated rotation. Not very impressive, but it's radar indicated nonetheless, and it is still a storm that could produce a tornado here. So northern Adair County, about 5,000 people from the north side of Kirksville up into extreme southeastern Schuyler County of Missouri. Ongoing tornado warning for you, but the more obvious threat here is moving through the far northeastern corner of Missouri, moving into Keokuk, Iowa. So look out for this one. This one, here you have that area of obvious rotation, and it's a cyclonic area of rotation. It's moving counterclockwise, and that's what we would expect to see here with our tornado threats in northern parts of Missouri most of the time. Checking out some of your questions here while we're still in a break. That one, Lucas asking, how's it looking for Dubuque, Iowa tonight? I'm going to zoom out here so we get a little more, just a little more perspective on things. And in Dubuque, we are concerned about severe weather. You got flash flood warnings, a flash flood warning in effect right now, by the way. Most of the noise right now is on your eastern and southeastern doorstep, but there is some more convection developing off to the west. I like the trend for you because you're already getting some rain that's going to help to restabilize the atmosphere some. And therefore, you are indeed on the edge of the severe risk that we're most concerned about. And I think that the very short-term trend in Dubuque is very good because, and I'm going to just highlight where Dubuque is here on the map, right here, the end of the arrow there. The good news is that you already have convection underway. You're not facing any rotation. You got moderate rain. As this progresses, I think the risk is going to get trimmed through your area. So the risk in Dubuque, relatively low right now. And I don't expect that to change in a bad way. We just have to keep an eye out for some of this convection until it totally exits your area. All right, we're back up here on the AccuWeather Network talking with some people in Dubuque, Iowa, but we're also facing a severe risk involving 2 potential tornadoes in northern Missouri. One of these is a tornado-warned cell on the northern part of Kirksville. As we look at this here, the rotation is being viewed or sampled aloft from a pretty strong, pretty significant distance. So we're not able to see up close, low-level circulation. We can see with a little more clarity what's going on in Keokuk. It's marginally closer to the radar site, but it also is showing us more obvious, an obvious couplet of rotation here, where we have green inbound up against red. So there's an area of rotation here that's about to move into Keokuk, and as I pull this out, I want to loop it. And we're going to let the radar catch up here. It's on a trajectory to move basically right into Keokuk. So this warning has had 20-some thousand people under the risk area, under the warning. And it moved right through Antioch, and now it's about to cross the river and go right into Keokuk. The other area of rotation, and this is it's a bolder looking outbound signature, but this is, again, this would be a clockwise rotating couplet. We're hitting this fairly high up in the atmosphere, but again, the red is outbound, movement away from the Cedar Rapids and Davenport radar site, and green in. So that could be an anticyclonic tornado threat. They're rare. Only about 1 or 2% of those in North America rotate that way, but it is something we have to keep an eye on. Let's check in now with storm chaser Aaron Jack joining us live from Galesburg, Illinois. Mr. Jack, you've been on the move quite a bit over the past few days, and your work is not done. How's it going in Galesburg as you're in place ahead of the next round?
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. This morning across Iowa and Illinois, we had that MCS come through, that big complex of storms. Expected that to move out of the area today and then lay down an outflow boundary. And that outflow boundary has been dropped from that complex of storms. And it just came through the Galesburg area about a half an hour ago. So it's just to the north here. And that outflow boundary is going to be a focal point for supercells today. We could see some strong supercells there and strong tornadoes for any supercell that can latch onto that boundary. Now I'm watching back off to my west. Now this is off to the north. You can see a dark sky off to my north here, and the camera that you're looking at that on the south my stream is also looking to the northwest. Now that's looking towards Davenport, where we do have some severe storms starting to get going there. And then further off to my west, we're getting sun overhead right now, and that is not a good thing because that is going to continue to destabilize this environment here. But off to the west, some additional cells starting to try and bubble up, percolate, just like that one further to the southwest. That is tornado warning near Keokuk. Kind of that same line of cells trying to get going is what I'm watching off to the west here, which is also a little bit closer to that outflow boundary. So definitely have a risk. Hold on, I'm having an issue here. Sorry about that.
That's good, Aaron. We're still with you.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we're definitely tracking these cells off to our west. That could definitely be supercells, and they will pose all hazards this evening. As I mentioned, strong tornadoes are possible, damaging wind and hail. We're just getting started. It is early in this event, but these storms could go fast. Like right now, they're just little blips on the radar, kind of just like that Keokuk one was, and all of a sudden they quickly get surface-based, start rotating, and become a tornadic threat. So. Also, one of the bigger concerns I'm worried about today, too, is some of these tornadic supercells, once they mature, start moving off to the east here into Illinois. I think they're going to be highly rain-wrapped tornadoes, possibly making those very difficult to see and very dangerous. You may have to be within a few hundred yards of the tornado to be able to see some of these rain-wrapped tornadoes. So definitely a dangerous night ahead here in the Midwest, and we'll be tracking them here for you guys. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, Aaron, we appreciate that. Good report. We are concerned about some of these storms in the Chicago area as well into the evening. So let's take a look at this future radar. I'm going to zoom it into Chicago and just slowly scrub through this. This is a simulation of the next several hours, future radar and clouds. And just in full transparency, this, if you're a weather nerd like myself, this is it's kind of like a made-for-TV cleaned up version of the HER high-resolution rapid refresh. And it is a model that updates every hour, and it gives us a view of the next 15 hours or so. And then every 6 hours, it goes out a few days. But it's probably the best model it's one of the best models outside of some other products here that we have at AccuWeather, like MinuteCast and some other proprietary things that we have. And you can use them on the AccuWeather app. But for a publicly available computer model from the federal government, this is the best bet for short-term weather forecasting. And you can see here's the clock on the top. It models the same theme that you use on AccuWeather.com and the AccuWeather app with that time bar. There we are at 7 p.m. Central Time. These storms will be moving right through Chicago probably around that time. We're concerned about damaging straight-line winds. We're also concerned, especially earlier on, about tornadoes. The tornado risk is maximized maybe around 5 or 6 p.m. Central Time. You can see more of these storms would be isolated. I'm trying to draw attention to storms that are not in a line. Not in a line, but they're independent and they're discrete is the word we use for these. As we get deeper into the evening, they kind of congeal into more of a squall line. And that might actually be to our advantage in Chicago if we want to avoid tornadoes. However, there will be a significant risk of damaging wind when this storm wallops your area. And man, we saw that last night in Chicago as well. Many of you will remember that storm for a long time. By 8 p.m. Central, you can really see a cohesive, more linear band with very few interruptions. Now, when we see this, what we'll probably see, I'm just going to simulate some future warnings. There might be, severe thunderstorm warnings in areas like this and marine warnings over the water. And then we'll probably have a long line of severe thunderstorm warnings for wind. But we'll also probably have, along these little notches, isolated tornado warnings here and there. And along those little notches, that's where we sometimes see, again, little kinks along the line, little breaks. You can get little things like strong blasts of wind that produce wind that kind of outruns the neighboring wind to the north and south. We get these little bookend vortices. They can produce brief tornadoes. So again, I'm just making some fictitious warnings there just to show you the general theme of how this will play out. And then into the night, still isolated tornadoes along certain gaps within the line, but mainly damaging wind as the main concern. And there we get deep into the night. And some of you have seen some questions on the chat about southern Indiana. And also the St. Louis area while we're here. Again, we're going to be dealing with St. Louis earlier than southern Indiana for sure. St. Louis, you have a risk of damaging wind, small risk of tornadoes there as well. You're not in our primary threat area, but you're in the secondary risk zone, which is significant with this one. And then into southern Indiana, the greater risk is going to be north of I-70. Storms will move through the southern half of the state, south near Bloomington and other areas, all the way down to areas like Santa Claus, Indiana, near Holiday World. I've been there. Very exciting. And down to Evansville, we have some risk of some strong storms into the daybreak time frame, even before daybreak, 3, 4, 5 a.m. But we're looking at damaging wind as the main risk there. So here's our tornado risk. And you'll notice it does not include St. Louis. We're way north of there. But it does include where we're seeing, and hats off to our forecasters, our AccuWeather forecast team. You try to sketch this up with maybe the southwest corner of the red zone where we see the first tornado warnings. And, that's exactly what happened. And we're going to see the risk kind of propagate in this fashion through the course of the next several hours. So hats off to them forecasting very well the first initiation point where the first few tornado warnings have been located. And let's go back to the radar, and here we are. So that worked out, unfortunately, well. Unfortunately, because we root against tornadoes, but the forecast was successful in plotting where those are likely to first occur. Now, some of you have questions about what's the risk like in my area. Now, St. Louis, sometimes if we didn't have a high risk to your north, we'd be jumping up and down talking about the risk up and down I-44 from Tulsa to Joplin to Springfield to Rolla to St. Louis. A 2 out of 4 risk is significant. It's just maybe a little bit lower, and certainly lower than the risk to your north. So it is all relative. Many days we'd be concerned, very concerned. And St. Louis would be the main story. But today, that's a big story. Chicago's the bigger risk area, given the wind shear that's parameters and so forth. No bad storms around Illinois, about Shivesley and Louisville right now. I'm going to bring back the whole National Weather Service radar puzzle piece and just a couple of sprinkles up there into Boone and Kenton counties of northern Kentucky. The only show in town is not, the Midwest is not the only show in town, is what I'm trying to say. We have some severe storms also moving through Connecticut into areas near Waterbury and now Southbury, New Milford. Severe storms closing in on New Haven, Connecticut. They are going to be bringing damaging wind and hail risks to these areas. We are seeing some new wind reports. Waterbury itself, trees and wires down, trees on wires. And then also up into areas near Ithaca and Geneva. We're facing some ongoing severe warnings into upstate New York and Seneca County, Schuyler County, down into areas that are home to the Cornell University there in Tompkins County, up into northern parts of Monroe County. We have the area northwest of Rochester, along the shores of Lake Ontario under a severe thunderstorm warning. And then also much of west central Pennsylvania from Elk down into areas like Jefferson County, Clarion, Clearfield, Indiana County of PA, Cambria County, Westmoreland, Somerset. All these areas under severe thunderstorm warnings into Garrett County, Maryland, and areas like Preston and Monongalia County of West Virginia, Tucker, Barber, and down into Lewis County of West Virginia as well along Interstate 79. So again, we're not exempt from the risk there. Parts of the northern panhandle of West Virginia under a flash flood warning. But when you come back here in about 4 minutes with the AccuWeather Network, we're going to dig a little deeper into the latest status here with these ongoing tornado threats in northeast Missouri and Keokuk, Iowa. All right. So no one has covered what is happening. I live in Ellsworth, PA. We had 6 hit in our area alone. I'm reading one of your comments. We've talked quite a bit about those 6 tornadoes that were confirmed on Saturday night. In fact, I mentioned them just about 20 minutes ago in southwest Pennsylvania there near California, PA. And 6 were confirmed. 6 were confirmed same night as that Morgan Wallen concert that we talked about there being canceled in Pittsburgh. So we care about you. We do. We're talking about your stuff there in Ellsworth. Maybe you were not tuned in at that moment, but we could talk about it again. We are concerned about strong storms in southwest Pennsylvania. So again, the area near Uniontown and to the east here, we're facing an ongoing severe threat moving into Somerset County along the PA Turnpike. Here's the Turnpike. West of the Breezewood exit at this point. It's coming into the Breezewood exit pretty quick, though, so look out along that whole stretch. In Pittsburgh proper, you're doing okay. We have some showers to the north up near Cranberry and then also west of Washington. But the immediate core of the Pittsburgh metro kind of running the gap. Your nastiest storm was a little earlier, and that's the latest here. You have had some strong winds. So the risk is going to decrease in Pittsburgh after these storms move through. The city of Pittsburgh, you're stepping out of it. Still have some strong storms off to the west near Monessen and approaching Washington. But again, the area that we're more concerned about beginning to step into the eastern half of Westmoreland County and beyond. So moving into more of the Laurel Highlands proper and away from the city of Pittsburgh. Though there is still a strong storm to the south and also moving into parts of Washington County. So that there it is. We are somebody wondering about Maryland. Yeah, we did. We just took a look at Maryland, Garrett County, Maryland. Get ready for it. Nasty storm coming into the area near Deep Creek Lake and Kaiser's Ridge. An accident. Other communities here along Interstate 68. Here's I-68 here, and you go through the high ground there, and we get some fierce wind up there. Some fierce wind. So look out for it. It's coming in, moving through Cheat Lake right now in the northeast corner of the Morgantown area and West Virginia. So it's Garrett County is up next. Then after that, Allegheny County, Maryland will also be hit with some strong storms. But there is a severe thunderstorm warning for Garrett County there until 5:30. Baltimore and other areas farther east, you're in the clear for now. We'll keep an eye out for that area later this evening as well. So we're coming back here in about 90 seconds. Just, while we have the latitude. Marietta, Ohio. Marietta, right down here. As we zoom in, you have a little downpour right now, a little bit of lightning. I wouldn't go outside with that right now. But this storm has been scooping on in. And actually, the storm that was approaching from your northwest, north of Hocking Hills, is weakening, and it looks like the storm that popped up right over your area of Marietta, strengthening. So that's going to be strengthening as it moves up the river and off to your east through some of coal country there. So that's the status in Marietta. I don't see anything ominous off to your west in the short term. So once this little small scale, non-severe, very typical garden variety thunderstorm moves through Marietta there, the next 20 minutes, you're going to be in the clear then for a bit after that. A lot of lightning with that cell just north of Kirksville. All right. So that was the latest there in Marietta, Ohio. Checking out other items. I want to leave the chat briefly. All right. So we have over 1,000 of you on YouTube and some on TikTok. This is the second time we've ever done the TikTok live. Some of the comments, I don't have TikTok. I haven't directly seen the comments there, but Jesse Farrell's answering some of them. And some of the comments on TikTok are different than the comments on YouTube. You never know. It's a different crowd. But we're glad that you're here. We are glad that you're here. All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network with our YouTube live simulcast and on TikTok. We're tracking some severe weather moving through parts of the Midwest, and we're going to be continuing to track some of these issues. By the way, there is an update here to our severe thunderstorm watch graphic, and then I want to jump in with a little more clarity to the severe risks that are at play with two ongoing rotating thunderstorms in extreme northeast Missouri. One of these actually is now moving over Keokuk, Iowa, in the extreme southeast corner of Iowa, and it's right in this area. So hats off to our forecast team. The first two tornado warnings of the afternoon formed in the southwest corner of our high-risk area, and that's right where you would expect to plot them. We're going to have more storms develop farther south, but the main event here, the next 3 hours between, the next 4 hours maybe, between now and right across all of northern Illinois and into Chicago. And, you know, Illinois has been a wild spot for tornadoes this year, and it's been the northern half of Illinois. We had, I'm trying to jog my memory, I think there were 85 confirmed tornadoes with that event from March that moved through the area. In fact, we still have a graphic, and we took a lot of effort to tabulate all those tornado confirmations. This was back on April 17th and the following night. And unfortunately, the same area here is at risk with, again, tonight's primary severe threat. So southern Illinois, south of I-70, has been very different compared to what's going on to the north. But before we jump into radar, we're going to check in with, I think we're going to go to Guy Pearson. Yeah, we're going to go to our Severe Weather Center here in a moment. But I do want to bring up the update to the watches graphic. And the new addition here that we hinted at a little bit ago was Northern Virginia up through Baltimore and Washington, all the way up to the eastern part of the Finger Lakes and up through the Catskills. So that's a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 p.m. But our main threat is going to be tornadoes in the short term, a little farther west. So we want to bring in AccuWeather severe weather expert and one of the leaders of the the AccuWeather Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. And he's also boots on the ground. Let's go to Guy Pearson. Guy, we have big concerns about this whole setup again. And again, it's northern Illinois. We were just looking at the confirmations from that event 2 months ago, mainly north of I-70.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's sometimes when we get in a particular weather pattern, we're just sort of stuck there. And, this is one of those that, Illinois happens to be one of those areas where everything is coming together. It's the moisture return. It's the having enough heat during the day. So much so that, we're seeing areas here that have been, potentially hit 3 or 4 times now over the last several days. And there's just a lot of heat built to the south. And so it's been able to bubble right back up there and really set things off once again. Even with, that complex of storms moving through Chicago this morning, we're still looking at things, to ramp back up here in advance of the next system. Or the next wave, we'll just say, coming through. But certainly that area of far northeastern Missouri, southeastern Iowa, at the moment, you can certainly see the dew points creeping back up there. And even though Chicago sort of knocked back down a little bit with the stuff from earlier, we certainly have some, darker greens that there's still plenty of moisture to work with.
So, Guy, right now, sometimes we do a lot of the radar interpretation on the fly here. it looked to me like anticyclonic rotation in Kirksville. Was that your take there from Wichita, or did you guys have a different handle on? I know that we were really far from the radar site, and the beam's a little broader when you get that far up. It's high up in the storm. I see that warning's been abandoned.
Yeah, sometimes I'd have to. I actually, unfortunately, wasn't looking specifically at that one earlier, but I can imagine, from what you're describing there, sometimes when you start to have some wind energy punch into the back, which the whole thing is sort of lined out now at Kirksville, sometimes what happens is you can actually see some of the wind in different directions aloft that then actually help to mix things down. And so sometimes it's not always rotation that's you're seeing there. It's just different sort of forces working together to then actually can drive, some severe weather events from a, wind aspect, especially. So,
okay, yeah.
Which radar are you looking at of here?
Well, we're out of Davenport, Iowa right now, so we're looking from the northeast to the southwest. Yeah. And by the way, Guy, as we speak, one of the cams that we're going to be able to show in a moment here is in Keokuk, and there was a slight appendage out of the base of this storm. So we are admittedly far from the radar site. I could bring up St. Louis as well.
Yeah, I mean, that one's pretty good, especially since you're sort of looking at storm relative there.
Yeah.
It's certainly, rotating enough, and you start looking at that high, and you're not always going to have that couplet, right? That we really like to see at the lowest levels and things like that. So just the stronger rotation there, in a situation like this would be enough to say, hey, it's rotating pretty good. Wouldn't be surprised if something did form out of it, without really having that tight couplet like we typically like to see.
Yeah, and I'm going to press pause and actually scrub back. There was a moment, in fact, a few moments where, even though we were looking high up in the storm, that was a relatively tight, well-defined couplet, about as good as we could do. And there was, I think, 84 mile per hour gate-to-gate shear with the storm relative. Looks a little broader right now, but that bottom middle shot there, there's been a wall cloud in view. And earlier there was a slight appendage. Mel, do you know which chaser that is in Keokuk? Or is that a... No, it's not a chaser. It's a live cam. It's just a well-located live cam. I guess it's one of these shots that can be moved, and usually we wouldn't look at the support structure of whatever it's attached to, but obviously there's a lot of interest in that direction because that's where the base of the storm is. Well, moving forward, what would you advise somebody in Chicago? A lot of questions from our viewers in Chicago wondering about how the evening will play out.
Yeah, Chicago is one of those right on the line. I would certainly say it's one of those situations where you want to be prepared for more severe weather this evening. The storms out to the west there, they're approaching DeKalb, are, still producing some general winds of, probably 55 to maybe 60 mile an hour at times. So, it's one of those that the environment and the atmosphere is trying to regenerate itself and bring, better moisture and a little bit more heat and instability back up into that area. The window, though, is going to be pretty small here, especially with the leftover complex that was just moved out just a little bit ago. I think even yesterday we had, a few hours more window in there between when we had the two events that went through Chicago yesterday. So, it's just one of those that it is borderline there. Certainly anything just south of Chicago on that line in our high risk here, you certainly really need to be paying attention to the weather. It doesn't take much. And sometimes from a severe weather aspect, it's not necessarily having high, all the different types of ingredients and all being high. Sometimes it's the rate of change of those ingredients. So this would be one of those where maybe everything's a little bit more stable, but all of a sudden there's a little bit of outflow, a different boundary that shifts. And now all of a sudden you are back right into higher humidity, heat, and right back in the severe weather. So everybody does need to be paying attention in the highest tornado risk area here that we have drawn up.
All right. Well, I appreciate your insight as always, Guy. Guy Pearson's been doing this a long time. He's a wizard when it comes to severe weather and radar interpretation. Guy, thanks again for your insight.
Yep. Thanks, Geoff.
All right. We are at the moment in a commercial break with the AccuWeather Network, but they're going to be rejoining us here very shortly. Most of the conversation with Guy was broadcast on the network as well. But people wondering about Janesville, Wisconsin. Is that area safe? We're going to be keeping an eye out. We'll look at that here in just a moment. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network, and we've been up commercial-free with Guy Pearson there on the YouTube and TikTok live stream. So forgive the slight cutoff there as he went to a commercial break. But we are going to be continuing to track these storms. We have a new tornado threat emerging separate from the previous cell that we've been watching up near Kirksville, Missouri. A new cell adjacent to that is now being tornado warned. And we still have also a tornado threat into the area near Keokuk, Iowa. Let's take a look at this brand new one. And I beginning to think that the St. Louis radar site might be the best bet for this one. Just a little farther south. We can look at it from both the perspectives of Kansas City and St. Louis. So looking at this from the southeast to the northwest, there's the St. Louis radar site. And as we press pause on things, let's bring up the velocity scan, and there it is. You could see an area of some rotation. We're dealing with an area where, again, we have outbound. And again, we're looking at a setup here where there's some strong wind that's pushing in from the northwest. But the brief tornado threat's going to be into areas around Macon, Missouri. I want to take a look at this from another direction, from Kansas City's perspective. Here you can see with maybe a little more clarity, a little bit of a notch or a little hook shape. Another one down here, perhaps a zone of slightly enhanced rotation. And as we look at the scan here, this is a little more aligned with what I would expect to see. Red outbound, green inbound. We're looking at this from Kansas City, from the southwest to the northeast. In Macon County, Missouri, a new tornado warning in effect here for Atlanta, Missouri. That's Atlanta, Missouri. Far cry from Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Missouri under a tornado warning. And then also to the north, the new tornado warning issued for the central and eastern part of Hancock County of Illinois. All right, that was a short break there. Hey, the Keokuk cam is on the move. This is very exciting. We are going to get a view of the base of this storm. And there you can see, again, a slight appendage out of the base of this one. This webcam. And we're looking at some traffic. But, man, that almost looks like a little funnel there. Knobs, can we bring that up full in Keokuk? All right. I'm trying to... So we have, we've got the rain shaft there, and somebody went back to the rain shaft, whoever's driving the camera, which is not somebody here. And that's the rain shaft. But as we pan back, this is where the updraft is located. This is where we could see out of the base of this storm, one of these appendages perhaps become a rotating funnel cloud. When I look at this, and I'm not a storm chaser, I've been through the storm spotter training classes and a meteorology degree from Penn State, but some of our storm chasers have a lot more on the ground cloud interpretation information. Maybe if we have the chance to go to Tony or somebody else when he's up, when I look at that, if the base of those filaments of the cloud are attached to the cloud base itself, the cloud structure, that's more ominous than if you get some scary looking clouds that are not fully attached. We call that scud. But if they're fully attached to the base of the cloud, that is something that, we might be looking at the wall cloud here as we zoom in there. If that is fully attached to the base of the cloud, a big block-like chunk of cloud hanging out underneath the base of that storm. Brandon Clement's storm chase feed there on the bottom right. We have Pittsburgh to the left, and we are continuing to track severe weather in various areas across the Northeast and also into parts of Missouri. Currently, we're dialed in to the area of western Iowa as well. Davenport radar site giving us a view that's a scrappy looking view, isn't it? An area of rotation. I'm going to loop this so we have more continuity. And the parent zone of rotation can be traced to this. Inbound, there's your outbound. So it's kind of moving between Ferris and Carthage. That's your most likely area of rotation. There's a weaker secondary zone of rotation near and north of Denver. So I would rate this as certainly a higher priority number 1 to the north, and then this newly emerging risk to the south. And that webcam view in Keokuk is presumably Keokuk is in Iowa, so we're looking across the Mississippi River. So we're looking in this fashion, right across the river. From west to east. So that means the north side of the view would be where the low-hanging clouds are, and that's where the rain shaft is and the downpours. It's got the shakes right now. And then the southern part is where the updraft is located, and that does line up very well with the depiction of heavier rain to the north and then again to the south. So we have that risk for a tornado. So areas around Ferris and Carthage moving into Fountain Green, that's your tornado risk zone. But with a secondary zone of rotation on the south side of this, again, 2 zones of rotation, we have to keep an eye out all the way down as far south of it as Augusta in southeastern Hancock County. Greater risk to the north. Stay in your shelter there in Hancock County of Illinois. That's western Illinois, just east of Keokuk, Iowa, along the mighty Mississippi River. We are going to jump in with the AccuWeather Network here at the top of the hour, so that'll be coming up very soon. And we are glad that you're with us here on the AccuWeather Network. And also our YouTube Live simulcast on TikTok. All right. I'm just checking out a few of your comments here. All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network, on YouTube Live, and also on the TikTok live stream. People wondering about Decatur, Illinois. Is that an area at risk? We'll look at that here in just a moment. But I wanted to show you 2 separate tornado warnings. Both of these are bringing the risk of a tornado, and arguably there are 2 separate areas of rotation within this storm moving through parts of Hancock County, Illinois. Velocity couplet, it's pretty scrappy looking. It's very scrappy, but overall, this zone of rotation to the north is the primary area of rotation that we saw near Keokuk, and it is kind of focusing in now. As we look at the latest scan, there is a more significant risk of rotation here, an area of rotation to the south. Secondary area up near Ferris, but the primary zone of rotation now is becoming this west of Carthage. And again, you can even find areas where there could be additional zones of rotation near Middle Creek. Hey, let's go to Carthage, right in the sweet spot here for this storm. Meteorologist and storm chaser Tony Lawback. Tony, we were looking at this storm from the Keokuk perspective through the help of a webcam. What's it looking like on the east side as this bears down on you?
That's a great question, Jeff. You found me in the one river valley between me and the storms. You get trees, but I'm in the core. I'm in the eastern flank of the storm right now. Likely going to punch into a little bit of hail. You're going to start to get a visibility here as I come around the corner and then get up out of this river valley, and we'll be able to see pretty good down to the west here, as this storm is not particularly high precipitation, despite what the radar's seeing. I've had a pretty good view when I've been up, but the signal a little weak here. So if I break out, don't go away too far. I will get back out of this. In fact, we're crawling up the hill here, and we'll be able to give you a more accurate discussion. But as always, you found me in the trees. And amazingly enough, here in Illinois, this is actually one of the kind of breadbasket areas that for chasing that wasn't really well known until the last few years, because it's just a lot of open farm country for the most part. But there are sections like this where you get closer to the Mississippi River, where sometimes you get to battle it out here. But looking kind of rainy still from my perspective. You're looking at kind of at a clear spot there on the far left side of the stream. That's kind of the southern edge of the core. Obviously, I don't have a very good view right now because I've got a heavier batch of precipitation between me and the storm. I'm moving due west right now on US 136. The storm is lifting to the north of 136. So the idea would be I kind of thread the needle on the south side of the core and then should be able to punch into where the tornadic area of the storm would be with a pretty solid view once I'm able to get through. This storm has undergone some mergers, kind of similar to the storm that we brought you the tornado on yesterday near Unionville. You get little showers, and Jeff was showing that on radar. There's a little cell there south of this cell, which is kind of moving up in that direction. A lot of times what happens is the main storm eats that cell. There's a little break while the cell kind of digests that, so to speak, and then you really get that rotation going. And yesterday we saw those tornadoes, that really big one that we broadcast live on air. That one happened after a merger. So a lot of times that kind of gives a shove. We call it a nudge. It gives that nudge to the process sometimes. and sometimes you get tornadoes immediately after that happens. So that's one of the things I'm watching. I have had several chaser buddies in the area reporting a funnel. You saw the appendage there on the Keokuk camera. So this does have the low-level rotation, and it certainly has some concerning features on it. And it's going to lift just to the north of 136. I think it's going to pass just to the west and north of Carthage, which is where I'm pointing to now. So I'm probably about, call it 10 minutes in this precipitation from getting to Carthage. But I am seeing the back end of the storm to my south here, and I'll just give it just a little nudge on the camera, and you can see there on the left side of the screen, that little white area there over the trees, that is the edge of the hail core. So I'm probably going to run into some hail here momentarily. Doesn't look like it's anything too terribly big. Again, we're beaming very high up into the storm. A good indication at this distance a lot of times is if you get really heavy core colors at that height, you know the hail's getting lofted up pretty good. Right now, I'm not seeing a ton of that, so that gives me a good reason to think that I should be in manageable hail. Just heard one hit the windshield here. It sounded like probably about a nickel or something. So we'll throw it back to you, but certainly keep an eye on what's coming here in about 5 minutes. We're going to have a whole different view on what's going on here.
All right, you got the excavators out there and all kinds of things on the highway. Thanks, Tony. Good stuff. We appreciate that report. Be safe on the roads. And let's take a look at this storm. Tony was describing some of this, and I can show it to you visually. He talked about that secondary storm to the south and is moving right through Chile. In New York, there's a town of the same name near Rochester called Chili. But both of these, two of these came in kind of from the southwest, almost like, I don't know, a linebacker coming in for a sack. And one actually has merged with the primary storm, as Tony talked about. Let's take a look at the velocity scan. And again, I keep on saying it's scrappy looking. These do look scrappy looking right now. But there is a tightening of this couplet to the west here near Carthage. So, again, there are a couple of zones of separate areas of rotation. Secondary zone to the east, arguably some rotation even with this next cell coming in from the west. But we are very concerned about a tornado here into parts of Hancock County in western Illinois. This is Hancock County, Illinois. Mel, could you repeat that about... Oh, yeah, look at that. Brandon. And where's Brandon again? Henderson, North Henderson, Illinois. All right, well, we got to figure out where that is here, don't we? I need to brush up on my Illinois geography. I'm just going to quickly. That's a pretty photogenic storm there. It's got to be that one, right? I imagine he's on that same cell. I don't see a whole lot of other storms that would produce a downpour quite like that. North Henderson, Illinois. It's very raw. We usually do a lot of this during commercial breaks. So we're in Mercer County. So he is on a different cell. Zooming out. Okay, so he's south of Davenport near Galesburg. Oh, he's on this cell here. Okay. So this is, it's a beautiful shot. But this is near Galesburg, a little bit northwest of there. We're going to find there it is. We made our way to North Henderson. So there it is. So it's not a severe storm, but it's a photogenic one regardless. And again, just a lot of very heavy rain, low visibility. And this is a highly sheared environment. The winds are blowing at different altitudes, different directions. So we're going to see a lot of these storms begin to rotate in greater numbers, unfortunately, in western and northern parts of Illinois. That is a big concern for us here. But the tornado threats that we've been tracking, one moving through Henderson County, one moving through Hancock County, Illinois. We spent a lot of time on that one. I'm going to take us farther south, and I want to give you an update here on the storm in the area near Macon County of Missouri. This is one county south of Kirksville, and we got the St. Louis radar site. I'll also take a peek at this from the Kansas City one, and in this case, I'm not seeing a terribly strong couplet. It is probably mainly a straight line wind signature from this perspective, but certainly I can see an area where there's the risk of a tornado moving through the area of north central Macon County. I'm going to switch over to the view from the Kansas City radar site. This is going to give us almost the opposite type of perspective. Instead of looking right into the side of the storm, this is going to run along the length of the storm. So it's going to give us a pretty good window into if there is true rotation within this one. And there is some broad rotation. There's the outbound and the inbound. This is storm relative motion, so it subtracts out the storm movement and gives us the depiction of how the rotation within the storm, how the storm is behaving. So between Atlanta and Love Lake, Missouri, there is an ongoing tornado threat. It's not a very strong couplet, but admittedly, we're looking pretty far from the radar site, so we're hitting these storms high up, 7, 8, 9,000 feet up into the atmosphere, about 2 miles up almost. And because of that, the broad rotation at that altitude can translate down to a tighter couplet at the surface or just above your head, or perhaps not. We don't know because this radar scan is only able to hit it higher up. That's why there's so much value in what storm chasers bring to the table. We can take a look at some recent reports, and I'm not seeing any very recent ones other than flash flooding from this morning up there. Route D in Missouri closed due to flooding. Here's a flood report from Philadelphia, Missouri. Motorists stranded earlier this morning, 8:31 a.m., and I'm glad to see no new reports of damage, but we'll have to keep an eye out for this. And I'm going to hop over back to another view. And we can go back to Tony. Tony, what are you seeing now? Any change? I see, I see a nice shot there. Is that the wall cloud that we're looking at?
Yeah, Jeff, we like I said, we were going to just need a couple of minutes to get in here. Definitely seeing some broad circulation. Nothing that I would call imminent. These things sometimes do spin up quickly, so I say nothing imminent, and then 3 minutes later we're watching a tornado. But you looking at the shot, you can see in the foreground, kind of closer to where the camera would be, you see the broad movement of some of the lighter scud clouds that are kind of moving from left to right across the frame. And then behind that, you see the broad rotation moving from right to left. So the whole base of this storm is slowly turning. I don't know right now if I would say anything's imminent for Carthage. Certainly be ready to jump in a moment's notice. This is right over town right now. So that is good news that we are not seeing anything happening, because this hook, again, if you're looking at this on radar, I know we're high up, but the hook is right over town right now. So good news, we're not seeing anything on the ground. Off to my this direction, left, is kind of that storm that's coming up from the south right now. That's probably going to be the big player, I think. I don't believe, at least what I'm seeing visually, that what is on my camera is necessarily going to drop anything here in the near term. I think what's going to happen is that storm from the south is going to come up and merge with this, kind of similar to what happened earlier when we had a bunch of funnel cloud reports. And I wonder if that's going to be kind of the next play for this storm. So we're here, we're on it, we're in good position. Unlike yesterday in Missouri, we've got good views outside of that river valley I came through. So we should be able to keep with this pretty good. So we'll toss it back to you. You can kind of bounce around, and I'll get in your ear when things change.
All right, thanks again there, Tony. Good stuff. We are now in a brief commercial break. I'm going to drop a quick message here. New watch box issued. Just want to stay on top of all this here with the ongoing threat that's going to be escalating a bit farther south. A new severe thunderstorm watch has been issued along this skinny band of convection breaking out now south of Kansas City near Lewisburg, Kansas, even south of there now into parts of Lynn County, into Chanute and Allen County, Kansas, and northwestern parts of Montgomery County, Kansas, northwest of Independence, and down into areas near Sedan, Kansas. A little gusty thunderstorm beginning to roll in, but there is a new severe thunderstorm watch to accompany this for parts of the area around Joplin, Missouri, and points north. Let's go up to the north again and take a look at these ongoing threats. Still 2 tornado warnings in view. The thunderstorms rumbling through the area northwest of Chicago, more of a Rockford setup here. A nasty storm with a lot of lightning, but no severe warnings on this south of Rockford along Interstate 39. Also, storms kind of losing a little bit of their steam as they move into South Bend and Granger, Indiana. They're on the southern fringe of Lake Michigan. We are seeing some questions on the chat. I'm going to take advantage of this break from the network to answer some of your questions on the chat here. Wondering about Detroit. Detroit, you're fine for now. The risk is pretty low for you in the foreseeable future. The latest, our team is forecasting gusty storms late this evening and into the overnight. So late this evening, that's your main risk there. And is there a risk for northern Illinois? There absolutely is a risk for northern Illinois. That is our main focus here this evening, we're most concerned about the northern half of Illinois. You've had a heck of a severe weather season there. Northern Illinois has been like the capital of severe weather for the United States. The United States gets more tornadoes than any other country in the world, so you've been kind of like the capital of severe weather for the globe. Unfortunately, so far this March, April, May, and into June in northern Illinois. So we are concerned about you. Chicago and Eden, Wisconsin. Well, let me check where Eden, Wisconsin is. Chicago, we have big concerns about you this evening. Eden, Wisconsin. Here we are a little bit northwest of Milwaukee, I see. West of Sheboygan, south of Oshkosh. So you're in some risk area. Technically we have you in moderate, but I'm increasingly feeling good about what's going on south of Oshkosh. This area, I don't intend to draw the arrow. This area here has a more limited risk because of all the noise in the atmosphere, all this rain, hour by hour or minute by minute of the rain falling and stabilizing the atmosphere in a good way, but the severe risk is greater to the south into Chicago. And Milwaukee, you're not out of the risk. You have a significant risk here this evening, but the rain is slightly reducing your risk overall. Quick glance here into coastal Connecticut, right up against the Long Island Sound. Bridgeport, severe threat for you, damaging winds. West and central Pennsylvania areas around Phillipsburg, PA to Altoona. Severe weather warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings into Garrett County, Maryland as well. But the network's about to come back to us. That's the update. In the Northeast, we're tracking some severe weather, but there's a greater risk here on the AccuWeather network in the Midwest. So I was just giving our viewers on YouTube a quick look at what's going on in the Northeast with some severe storms in progress. Southern and western Connecticut, right up against the Long Island Sound. Syracuse, New York, severe warnings up and down the I-99 corridor. Areas from areas like Clearfield, PA, into Bellefonte, PA, eventually a severe thunderstorm warning issued for you down to Altoona, all the way down to Garrett County, Maryland, and into areas like the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. Severe warnings right over Elkins because of damaging wind and hail potential. But our main concern is the severe weather risk later this evening in Chicago, and in the short term into western parts of Illinois. Before we go too far ahead, I'm going to show you the short range model that will give you a little more of a sense of what to expect. And in Chicago, you're okay right now. Rockford, some thunderstorms. Frankly, the thunderstorms in Rockford right now are helping to restabilize the atmosphere, but we want to get right now to Tony Lawback again in the area of a tornado-warned cell. Tony, what are you seeing?
All right, Jeff. You got it on stream right now. A large funnel has come down right now. I couldn't confirm ground contact. It was kind of nestled in the trees, but it's a stout funnel. And of course, the minute we're going to go on air, it's like, no, we don't want to do this just yet. But this started to really kind of get going. I would say 2 minutes after we got off air. I flipped the car around, and it was fat about halfway to the ground. I'd say it came down about 2/3 of the way. Would not shock me if it was down behind the trees. Again, we're coming through that river valley I was at moments ago. So. Definitely rotation, definitely a funnel. Again, can't confirm ground circulation. Funnel is dissipating right now, but that was a close one. We almost had a tornado on the ground moments ago. So keep me in your ear. We'll keep you posted here as the storm continues to push east.
All right, Tony, good stuff. Well, we certainly saw it when we first came to you, even if it was more impressive a moment ago. Let's take a look at this radar view of where Tony is. This is the area near Carthage in far western parts of Illinois. This is the Mississippi River. This is the extreme southeast corner of Iowa. That's Keokuk. And this is the far northeast corner of Missouri. And again, we're in western parts of Illinois. We're way north of Quincy, Hannibal, and St. Louis, south of Davenport. But there are two zones of rotation, but certainly the primary one is this one that Tony is on, and that has been responsible for producing a funnel cloud in the past 5 to 7 minutes there between Carthage and Fountain Green. So take shelter if you're in this area. This is still Hancock County, Illinois, facing a tornado threat. The radar data, it's not as obvious as what you might see when we're looking at supercells near maybe the Oklahoma City metro, and you got the close view of radar. Part of the issue here is that we're far from any individual radar site, so we're hitting the storm higher up, rotation a little broader upstairs, but this still has been producing a brief tornado, or brief funnel cloud, I should say, Don't see any new reports from this one, but Tony's got a very good set of eyes on that one, and that's the update there. Let's go back to this other tornado warned cell north of Macon in Missouri now. We're south of La Plata, south of Kirksville, Missouri. And as we switch over to the high-res radar data out of Kansas City, looking kind of up the length of this band of thunderstorms, this area of rotation is about to exit the warning. This is the primary zone of rotation. The red outbound, hints of inbound. It moved right through Atlanta, Missouri earlier. And I'm not terribly impressed by it, and the Weather Service is not either. And in real time, the warning has been canceled or perhaps allowed to expire. It looks like it was canceled since we're at 18 minutes after the hour. So again, they agree with that, and I'm on the same page. No longer much of a tornado threat with that one. But the tornado threat does continue into the area east of Keokuk, eastern Hancock County. Fountain Green, look out. There was a brief funnel cloud that lasted a couple of minutes not long ago. Tony Lawback, the bottom left view there is what we're looking at here in the Fountain Green area of eastern Hancock County, Illinois. And this is still producing some rotation. Back to the velocity scan. It's a moderate rotation here that we're seeing. It's very high up, about maybe almost 2 miles up into the atmosphere, maybe 1.5 miles to 2 miles up, about 7,000 to 9,000 feet up there, where we're hitting this storm, given the distance from the radar site. But Fountain Green, take shelter. The Weather Service is going to be confronted with a decision. Do they issue a new warning or not? I suspect that our SkyGuard team is keeping a close eye out, and there probably are at least some tornado alerts going out through at least our resources here at AccuWeather. For any of you with the AccuWeather Premium Plus app, the Premium Plus version of the app, because there's still some rotation, and an area of certainly significant concern would be this area into the Macomb area, west and northwest of Macomb. And there it is, the new tornado warning. We were just talking about this, and I would agree with that. Reasonable to issue a new warning for this one here into McDonough County, Illinois. And that's the risk area for a continued tornado threat. This storm did produce a brief brief funnel cloud. I don't want to be inaccurate here. A brief funnel cloud, at least, earlier. And the rotation is still moving through Fountain Green, but it's almost up to the county line from Hancock County to McDonough County, Illinois. One full county east and away from Keokuk at this point. Bottom left view there, that's the base of the storm. Tony's on it. So it's not producing a tornado at the moment, but it's a rotating storm that is capable of producing a tornado at this point here, moving through the area into McDonough County. And the nature of the rotation here, I'd say it's modest, maybe moderate, as it is still moving to the east. You might say, well, why didn't the Weather Service issue a small scale warning like that? And they didn't, because there's a second cell to the south that also has exhibited some rotation at times. So it's probably not a bad idea to consider taking shelter farther south as well. So I'd say anywhere in the warned area in McDonough County, there aren't many people in McDonough County not under this tornado warning, to take shelter in those areas as well. Going to give you the census population with that new warning here. It helps me at least gauge. Macomb is a pretty big town, 26,000 people, 19 schools there, a lot of people there in that area of McDonough County. Take shelter, tornado threat on the way. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break, and I'm going to jump back in to see some more of your questions. We want to see what's on your mind here on YouTube, and also on, all right, you're in Garrett County. Phoenix Dark Moon getting hit by that Garrett County storm there in the mountains of western Maryland. A lot of people don't know you can do some great skiing in Maryland. People who have never been to western Maryland, I think they picture Baltimore or the Chesapeake Bay. It's a different world out there in Garrett County and Allegheny County. Nasty storm in progress moving through the area of Garrett County right now. What's it going to be like in Missouri? Well, right now, it depends on where you are. It's a massive state. In Missouri, we are dealing with everything ranging from severe storms ongoing right now up in northeast Missouri. A quiet evening in Kansas City. We can kind of reinforce that with this look of future radar. Let's go to the different version, the HER. And Kansas City, a quiet night for you in Kansas City, but you're going to get walloped by some strong winds down into the Pittsburgh, Kansas, Joplin, Missouri area, Springfield. Anybody along and south of I-44, you're going to have a rocky evening. And even north of I-44, if you're into mid-Missouri, Columbia, Jefferson City, and those areas, anybody near Lake of the Ozarks and east of Lake of the Ozarks and south, that's our main concern zone. I'm going to bring in the new watches graphic here, if it's available here. I don't think it's in quite yet. But we are concerned about an ongoing severe risk that expands. So you can see most of the area of Missouri is under some kind of a convective watch, severe thunderstorm or tornado watch. The area that is going to be in the clear, Kansas City, you're in good shape. St. Joseph, you're in good shape. But the rest of you, for the major metro and even minor metro areas there into Missouri, you have to stay on top of it because we have a squall line moving in your direction. All right, so glad that you're with us here on the AccuWeather Network as we continue to track a severe weather event in progress. We have a brief hit with you here on the AccuWeather Network, and I wanted to give you a view of the ongoing watches. And again, latest watches here. There's a new addition down to the south into areas from Wichita Falls into Oklahoma City and points west into areas around southwest Oklahoma. That's a watch until 10 p.m. Other convective watches, severe thunderstorm watches for areas around northeast Oklahoma all the way through central Missouri. And as we loop this, or at least play it forward there, you can see the tornado watch in effect for northern Illinois. The area that we're most concerned about remains northern Illinois for the evening. There's a good trend up there near central and areas north of Milwaukee. A lot of rain. Restabilizing the atmosphere, taking the risk down north of Milwaukee. We also have a totally separate setup here with severe storms in progress across much of the Northeast. Baltimore, Washington, Harrisburg, Scranton, Binghamton, New York under severe thunderstorm watches in effect. Pittsburgh, you're in the clear for now. You had some storms that brought some walloping winds earlier. Here's the ongoing risk area. And again, I am feeling more and more comfortable with the status of things up to the north here. We're going to begin to see more and more rain restabilize things to the north. So I suspect our next update is going to improve the condition there near and north of Madison. Just because of all this rain. It's stratiform rain. It's a steady rain. You're not going to get much rotation within that. We're very concerned, though, south of Milwaukee, especially in Chicago, especially near and south of Rockford. You're getting your first storms in progress here in Rockford now. And, every passing cell that's not rotating in Rockford, that's a win. That is reducing the risk of severe weather. But where we have not yet seen storms, there's a big risk of isolated tornadoes and damaging winds through this area. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to another commercial break. I'm going to check in on some more of your comments and questions. I want to see what's going on internally here with our own conversation here. Lots of wind damage east of Johnstown. We're going to check out those local storm reports. Thanks, Jesse. We'll do this with the network as well in the top of the half hour. But Johnstown, PA, Cambria County, a town no stranger to weather hardships in the past, with 3 devastating floods in the past 150 years. So a lot of damaging wind reports there. Cambria County, wires down. Tyre Hill, PA, and Somerset County, wires down. East Conemaugh, Cambria County, wires down. Nanny Glow there, wires down. Altoona, Duncansville, trees down. Crescent and Cambria County, wires down as well. I'm going to bring up the outages as well. Forgive the little break here before we really get this back in business here. I want to see how many outages there are in the Northeast. And thank you, Kayla. Kayla just updated the watches there. Power outages, Northeast power outages, and we'll bring up the North Central as well. Now we're looking. Well, we're in the orange, which is more than 50,000 addresses in the dark there. And earlier we had the view of Somerset, PA, the area of the Flight 93 Memorial, where you had some dark clouds. 60,000 addresses without power in Pennsylvania. Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia contributing to that. So we're over 100,000, 122,500 addresses not getting power right now. And that means probably about 250,000 people, 250,000 people in the Northeast. And again, I'm doubling these numbers because this is the number of electric meters not getting service. So at least 250,000 people in the Northeast, the interior Northeast mainly, not getting electricity right now. And we can bring up a similar product for the North Central. I'm going to bring this up from yesterday. The north central view, how are we doing? Not good in Illinois. A lot of these are still left over from last night. 130,000 addresses without power in Illinois. So between the two regions, the north central and northeast, we have probably about 500,000 people without electricity. All right. I was requesting a combined north central northeast power outage map here from our graphics meteorologist Kayla for later use. Just one-stop shop. The latest version of the watches here, you can see the Southern Plains now under that one. Lawton, Oklahoma, Wichita Falls area, just west of there, up through Oklahoma City. So that's the latest look at watches, and I'm going to go back to YouTube, see what you are talking about on there. All right, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Well, you are going to, last night you had storms wallop your area in the evening, and they were impressive. They came right across the lake, and the white caps are out there. We're going to see something similar. Straight line winds probably between 8 and 10 p.m. Central Time. That's 9 to 11 Eastern. We got a good funnel cloud there in Hamilton, Illinois. So let's go back to Tony Lawback. Actually, who is on that? Oh, that's not a live view. The bottom middle, Hamilton. That's earlier. Was that earlier today? Okay. Hamilton, Illinois. That's new video. That I suppose that's the same cell that Tony was on. The network's about to rejoin us. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. There you can see a view from Hamilton, Illinois, bottom middle, earlier today, funnel cloud, not long ago. That is the same cell that Tony Lawback is on. Tony saw that from a different perspective. It was oriented differently. If you look at these things from different angles, they give you a different presentation, but that's the same cell that now looks like the thing to the left, in the bottom left. So that funnel cloud is associated with the same storm, that Tony is on. And we're going to give you a look at that here in just a minute. But I wanted to give you a reset here on the AccuWeather Network. Some of you are wondering, what does the evening look like? I'm taking a look at your questions and comments on YouTube and on TikTok. Others are monitoring. And we are going to be watching the greatest risk for severe storms in northern Illinois. Overall, northern Illinois facing the biggest threat through the next 3 hours. Chicago is going to be facing this in about probably 2 to 3 hours, maybe hours in Chicago itself. And then there are questions about western Michigan. Similar to last night, gusty winds will race across Lake Michigan and bring some more power outages to Michigan, unfortunately, again, late tonight. It'll happen later than last night's round. And then these storms will rain out, bring heavy rain and some wind, still some severe storms down near and south of I-70 into the late night hours as things improve in Chicago. Hey, let's go to a quick look at the radar. Then we're going to go to Aaron Jajak, who is joining us here. I'm going to take us back. I was looking at all these wind reports in the interior Northeast with some of our YouTube followers. A lot of power outages between the Northeast and Illinois. There are about 500,000 people, about 250,000 addresses, and about 500,000 people without power right now. But let's go to Prairie City, Illinois, where Aaron Jajak is located. And Aaron, Prairie City, I'm going to have to do a quick search. Where is Prairie City in Illinois, and which storm are you on?
Yeah, I'm on that one that you're looking at on radar. That's tornado warning right there coming into Macomb. So I'm just south of Bushnell, Illinois. You can see Bushnell there just to the northeast of that. These two supercells, tornado warning supercells right now. And if you look down this road back behind me, if you go straight down that road, that will take you to the west of Bushnell. There's a town called Bardolph. It looks like the rotation and the base of that northern cell is out of view because it's that southern cell you're looking at in my stream now is the southern cell. That's the base of the southern cell. But the rain from all that storm is moving into the storm to the north, that one that's coming into Bardolph right now. So if there is rotation, there is a tornado on that storm, it would be hard to see right now. But we're kind of watching the storm off to the southwest. And I want to mention, as I came down from Galesburg, I was up in Galesburg, and, we had conditions that felt like severe weather there, warm and humid air. You just felt like severe weather. But as I dropped down here in front of this supercell, I felt that the temperatures and that dew points just rise dramatically. So this environment here in front of these two supercells is quite juiced. So these are going to be dangerous storms here as they move off to the east, northeast, likely moving into the Peoria area in a couple of hours. But we'll be tracking them here right now. Nothing really going on other than being able to see kind of this rain-free base off to my southwest, and then a lot of rain off to the west right now. And as I mentioned earlier, one of my concerns today was being that a lot of these storms are going to be very high precipitation. Very hard to see the tornadoes and see the rotation until it's right on top of you. So that does look like the case that's going on right now, at least for this northern storm that's interacting with the rain from the southern storm right now. So for me, I'm going to be tracking the south one right now until this kind of clears out. Maybe they'll kind of merge into one big storm as it moves off to the east towards Peoria over the next couple of hours. Back to you, Geoff.
All right, we got a double view of Aaron Jack. We see you from your phone. We see you from your cam as well. This is pretty exciting, Aaron. Aaron in 4 dimensions. There he is, and that's a pretty photogenic shot. Aaron, thanks for tracking this with us. Be safe out there. 2 rotating cells entering and moving through parts of, again, the area of Macomb, and one specifically northwest of Macomb. I'm being clumsy. I'm trying to remember the county name. McDonough County, Illinois. And these are pretty well presented couplets. The stronger couplet certainly to the north. This is the one that Aaron is on. Tony Lawback has been on that one as well. And then to the south near Colmar, or Calmer, I'm not sure. There's a town, the same name in the Philadelphia area, and people pronounce it both ways there. Both areas rotating at this point. So 2 zones of rotation in McDonough County of Illinois, moving through this area of western Illinois. I want to draw this a little bit cleaner. An area of rotation, pretty obvious rotation there, west of Macomb, and then near Colmar or Calmer. We're dealing with an ongoing severe threat there with an ongoing area of rotation. The view again, bottom, middle, and Hamilton, Illinois, that was produced by the same storm. Very well-defined funnel cloud that Tony Lawback also captured as well. Tony's on the move through this storm. Heavy rain falling there in parts of McDonough County. 2 separate cells, and as we go back to the reflectivity, showing us where the rain is and what it looks like, how it's formatted, you can see it's a kind of... it's kind of one mass, but it's 2 storms that are kind of an aggregate here together and that are moving through this general area. As we continue to track other storms outside of the Macomb area and the McDonough County, Illinois cell, things are behaving themselves pretty well down to the south into parts of northern Missouri, near and north of Columbia, mid-Missouri. Beginning to see some stronger storms here. Hey, we got a severe thunderstorm warning into areas around Allen and Labette counties here. Parsons, Labette County, Kansas, Neosho County, Montgomery County, and Wilson County. So it's not Allen. Allen's up to the north near Iola. But Neosho County of Kansas and Labette County, southeastern Wilson County, near and barely east of Neodesha, and then northeast of Independence, Kansas, in Montgomery County. A severe threat. It looks like a wind threat here, mainly wind and hail at this point. We'll keep an eye out for that. I think that's the southernmost severe warning for the central U.S. Overall, the southernmost severe warning of the moment is in North Carolina. Tarboro. I've been to Tarboro. They had tremendous flooding there in 1998 or 1999 from Floyd. From Floyd, I think it was 99. Awful flooding in Tarboro and the Rocky Mountain area. A couple of severe thunderstorm warnings there in Nash County and also into Edgecombe County of North Carolina. All right, let's go farther north. A view of the northeastern U.S. still facing some ongoing severe threats in southwestern Connecticut. Bridgeport taking it on the chin right now. Nasty storm in progress moving out over the Long Island Sound. Watch this one in Suffolk County. The water's a little cooler. It'll be one argument to stabilize these storms some, but you're still going to have some strong thunderstorms move through Suffolk County. Look out into the Twin Forks, Montauk State Park. If you have kids out there, let them know. There's a big storm coming in. They'll probably know it maybe before you as it comes in from the Sound. Off to the north, up into Cortland, New York, we're facing some ongoing severe thunderstorms. Cortland, Onondaga, Cayuga, Chemung County, Steuben County as well. Look out for it in Binghamton, Broome County. You're going to be facing some nasty storms soon. Interstate 86. Nasty go of it there through Elmira and Corning and Horseheads through this area. Big storms rolling through There you can see Steuben County, a nasty storm. There's Corning and other areas here between Corning and Elmira and Horseheads. We're going to be dealing with some nasty thunderstorms with a lot of wind and hail potential. And then down into St. Mary's, we had a question on the chat from DuBois, PA. If I'm through the storms in DuBois, am I in the clear? Yes, you are for the evening. I saw another question. Somebody said, is it safe to go to the Jersey Shore now? Yes. Good time, good window to go to the Jersey Shore. There may be some strong storms later on, but you have no threats down the Atlantic City Expressway, the Jersey Turnpike, and so forth. We're looking really good along the Garden State Parkway for its entire length right now. In fact, there's not a drop of rain anywhere in the Garden State at this moment. So overall, we are dealing with some flash flooding that's developing north of Rockford. I want to say that it's good news because these storms are taking the tornado potential off the table. Statistically, more of us will be threatened by flash flooding than tornadoes in their lives. In fact, more Americans lose their lives by flash flooding. So that's why I'm not going to say it's good news that we're seeing this heavy rain in southern Wisconsin. But I will say the risk of a tornado is way, way lower in southern Wisconsin right now and for the rest of the evening because of the storms that are in progress. This is strongly restabilizing the atmosphere north of Rockford, Illinois. I'm not saying the same for Rockford. You still have a lot of convection moving in. But if you look at the lightning count north of the state line, north of the Wisconsin-Illinois state line, we are facing, again, a lot of heavy rain, and it's just really disruptive. This is going to be an environment where we're probably not going to see something new spin up. Look at Pittsburgh, PA earlier well, that's pretty impressive at PNC Park. Nasty storm there. I don't know if the Buccos are home tonight. Presumably, yes, the lights are on. Well, the rain has left. But earlier, Pittsburgh was seeing some nasty storms. And there's the view in Corning, by the way. That's about to get walloped by that warning, that severe warned storm coming in from the west, from Elmira and Corning area, coming in right down Interstate 86 from west to east. But I get distracted with all these different camera views. It's great. I like the different views. But and that's pre-recorded video in Pittsburgh. 640 from director Ryan Noblet there. Always with an eye on the sports world. So it's a quick forecast. They should be able to get that in. As long as there's not residual water on the field, they should have no problems at 640 in Pittsburgh, unless there's just kind of this backlog delay of drying things out from what happened earlier. But I got very distracted by myself. But in southern Wisconsin, the flash flood concern is the main risk for you for the rest of the evening. South of there, Rockford and south, the tornado risk is the biggest issue. Milwaukee, this is really good news that you're getting rain right now because this is, again, stabilizing the atmosphere. We often talk about areas that are seeing sun and not picking up those pre-existing storms. The risk for tornadoes are optimized here where you're seeing sun and just isolated storms in parts of Illinois. Well, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to a commercial break there. And, I always feel like I know that statistically flash flooding claims more American lives, 2-1 over the number of tornado deaths. But there is an element of choice involved and personal responsibility that's a failure a lot of the time with the flash flood deaths. Not all of them. There are innocent, wise people who lose their lives due to flash flooding, but most of the flash flood deaths in the U.S. every year, more than half of them occur by people driving into floodwaters. In extreme cases, sometimes you're driving down a road that's safe and the water comes up so fast that you get stuck. Or maybe you're in a traffic jam on the Vine Street Expressway in Philadelphia, and then the water begins to fill up and you're in a bad spot. But most of these flood deaths happen when people willingly drive into floodwater, whether there's a barricade there or not. It's nice when first responders can do that and put barricades in place, but your well-being, if you talk to a driver's ed instructor, it's your responsibility. It's not the barricades. So don't go around the barricade, but you got to be looking out for yourself even if there's not a barricade there. And a lot of the time, people drive into water that they don't know how deep it is, And that's when they get swept off the road and they lose their lives. Water is a powerful thing. 8 pounds per gallon. It's very, very significant. It's heavy. It's got serious momentum. And even on small streams and creeks, people's vehicles are carried downstream. And that can be a deadly thing. We're going to have to revisit this tornado threat down to the south here. I wish my rant was on the network there, because I feel like it's a valuable one. But I'm glad that you guys are on YouTube here. At least, I'm biased, but I think that a lot of people underestimate the danger of flash flooding. But it's a weather risk predominantly of choice, as opposed to a tornado that's going to generally come to you whether you're out on the road or not. So checking out some of your questions. Somebody says, is Tony Lawback okay? He is. I think he's okay. I think he's okay. Somebody was concerned about the visibility on the road there. He has been doing this for 30 years, and there are chasers that take tremendous risk. Tony says he wants to be able to chase tomorrow, so he's going to back out of some situations sometimes. He loves chasing so much that he doesn't want to put himself into the middle of the tornado. He wants to see it from a safe distance. And along with that, storm chasers log tremendous miles behind the steering wheel, so he's got a lot of practice doing this. There is certainly some risk out there on the road, though, no doubt about that. Hey, we appreciate Anna May's comment. You love our website. It's helped us. It's helped you so much over the years. We appreciate that. We take a lot of pride in our work here at AccuWeather. There's an army of people who are working on your forecast and updating the AccuWeather app there and the AccuWeather website content. It's not all automated. As you know, there are some apps out there that have like 2 employees and or maybe 2 meteorologists staffing to hypothetically produce forecast data. You can't do it with small numbers. We have over 130 meteorologists here at AccuWeather. Our company has about 3 times that many people, but there are people who do app development work and all kinds of things in the world of product development and marketing and sales and so forth. We work with more than half of the Fortune 500 companies in the country doing things that are fascinating, I think, improving their profitability and protecting their assets in ways that the federal government, they can't. We can give site-specific warnings to a factory's location as opposed to maybe a larger scale threat tied to a thunderstorm itself. So the network's about to rejoin us here. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. It is 4:44 Central Time, 4:45 Central Time, 5:45 Eastern Time, and we're tracking 1 tornado warning, but a slew of wind damage thunderstorms across the eastern U.S. Going through the interior, and also a couple of renegade cells. There is that warning that we were kind of anticipating into central Suffolk County, Islip and points east. Well, I think it's east of Islip. So Coram in Suffolk County. You have a severe thunderstorm warning until 6:45. Big storm coming in from the Long Island Sound. It's exiting Bridgeport and moving in your direction. There's the view in Corning, New York, along Interstate 86. Heavy thunderstorm. It's a severe thunderstorm in progress. Damaging wind is the big concern there. Look out there in Elmira, Cortland as well. Storm up into northwestern parts of Lycoming County, north of Williamsport, getting up into the area around the beautiful Pine Creek Gorge near Ansonia and other areas facing a severe storm. Flash flooding in progress farther north, areas from State College to Altoona, down into areas around Breezewood and Bedford. Severe warning in progress for damaging winds. Looking a little feistier there from Altoona down into places near the Lake Raystown Lake area in Huntington County, PA. Then into areas around Cumberland, in Allegheny County, eastern Garrett County, down into Mineral County of West Virginia. Look out. Big storms rolling through areas near Kaiser and Elkins. But we want to take you farther west, back to Guy Pearson. Guy's in Kansas. Guy, you're on the cool side of the front there in Wichita from AccuWeather's, well, maybe not cool, but the drier side of the front from AccuWeather's Severe Weather Center in Wichita, Kansas. But Guy, we're tracking still some action farther east. These storms seem pretty straightforward down into areas like Labette County, Kansas, the severe thunderstorm warnings. But as we go farther north, things get a little more interesting and feistier. Guy, what's your take on this storm here in Macomb right now?
It's still, I know there's been several reports of funnel clouds associated with that particular storm. And, it's got good rotation in it still, to where, if you're in the path of that particular storm, you want to make sure you're in a safe shelter spot. This isn't necessarily one of those situations where we're talking large on the long track type tornadoes, but at this moment in time, there's still a couple areas there as you're highlighting for rotation within the county itself. So you certainly want to make sure that you're understanding where you are in relation to the storms and make sure that you have enough time to get to shelter if you need to go to shelter.
And Guy, both of the views that we're seeing just to your right shoulder, to our viewers left, from your perspective there, are both of that storm. Aaron J. Jack and Tony Lawback, both on that storm there in McDonough County, Illinois right now. So again, we'll keep a close eye on that. But bigger picture, I was telling our viewers that while there is a flash flood risk that's escalating in areas around Janesville, Wisconsin, I really take all this noise on the radar. It's not quite stratiform. We do have some convective storms there. I take this as great news north of the Wisconsin-Illinois line. Do you think that there's much of a severe thunderstorm or tornado threat there, or is every passing hour of rain helping us out?
Every passing hour of rain is certainly helping out, especially with sort of the light green shield that's spread all over towards just north of Kenosha and everything there. But those storms that, we've got quite a bit of lightning with those are still pretty indicative of, storms that are strong enough to produce some brief gusty winds and things like that. So, 50, maybe up to 60 mile an hour with a few of the areas of the heaviest storms in there. We are seeing a little bit of velocity. So you were talking about the AccuWeather for Business side, and we do have a few clients in there that we actually have some lower wind warnings out for in that 50 to 60 mile an hour range. So there are some pockets in there that are still gusty. If you happen to be outside, or even if you're inside, understanding hey, you've got a heavier passing shower coming through, then you may still experience some gusty winds as sort of the main line of storms comes through here.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes I have to catch myself from hedging my words because worst case scenario, we would have 5 individual supercells roaring through this area, all laying down tornadoes. So we're not seeing that. But I also have to catch myself sometimes because flash flood deaths versus tornado deaths, or flash flood risks versus tornado risks. More Americans lose their lives every year in most years with flash flooding compared to tornadoes, almost 2 to 1. But there does seem to be some element of personal responsibility with some, but not all flash flood deaths, because they're in vehicles and people often take unnecessary risks.
Yeah, it is one of those situations. The slogan "Turn around, don't drown" is by far a good and mindful slogan to be using. If you do come across a roadway that you're not certain, exactly how deep that water is, it's one of those that you don't want to risk, especially if the water's moving. It doesn't take nearly as much, height of water. If that water is more rushing and more current driven, it won't take much to move most vehicles off the road and unfortunately then get into a bad spot.
And on a totally different note, we have a very different environment barely south of there, across much of northeast and north central Illinois, with a lot of sun still shining. I know we had some storms earlier that slightly restabilized the atmosphere, but there's been an opportunity for this to recover.
Yeah, it's trying to. I think if you're a fan of severe weather, you're probably hoping to try to see this recover a little bit more quickly than it has. But that one storm I just noticed northeast of Peoria there that they just issued a severe thunderstorm warning on. I was watching that one earlier, and it's had a little bit of a nice shape to it, sort of curling back around. Really wasn't showing too much on velocity, but it seems here lately that it is looking a little bit better. So that's probably sort of the area that I would be most concerned with, because that's really probably on the north edge of the best overall ingredients. And as this storm and those ingredients work farther north through time here over the next couple hours, that's going to be the window of opportunity, I think, in there for, additional tornadic development. There may be, certainly some other storms with some severe weather aspects, maybe some large hail or some damaging winds, but the greatest tornado risk or highest tornado risk there, certainly seems to be from Davenport east, sort of the area that you've highlighted there, over to Peoria. You might even sort of push that area, yep, exactly, a little bit farther southeast, just because of how the dynamics and the entire environment of moving a little bit slower than anticipated. That's going to then sort of push this greatest risk area a little bit farther southeast.
All right, good stuff there, Guy. I think we're on the same page there, and it makes me feel good because you've been doing this for a very long time. I know there with our severe weather headquarters there in Wichita. Here is a depiction. This is the HRRR. It's kind of a little bit cleaned up, simplified depiction of the HRRR made for TV. But earlier I was showing that we do have this transition from some discrete cells, and I say discrete when we say that in the weather business for our viewers, we're talking about individual storms that may not be attached in a clean squall line to others, eventually over to more of a unified squall line. Do you think we'll see a transition from some rotating storms to mainly wind later on?
Yeah, I think certainly as that sort of the line of storms that currently is over the sort of Iowa-Illinois line extending back southwest as it does continue to progress east through the overnight hours. Any of those individual cells, just like that one we were looking at there northeast of Peoria, those types of things will then eventually evolve into and be caught up with, from that line of storms, because the line of storms is really moving west to east with this particular instance, whereas that cell, if you were looking at it, it was actually a little bit more south to north and moving in that general direction. So eventually the line of storms moving and approaching from the west will catch up with that and sort of move things off with time here.
All right. Thanks so much for your insight, Guy. Guy Pearson in Wichita, Kansas. All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are tracking a number of different storms. Yeah, good stuff there, Guy. Thank you. We were just chatting with the Guy through the break as a continuation of our conversation with him. And just to summarize, those of you who were on the AccuWeather Network and stepped away to break briefly, to summarize what you may have missed from the conversation was generally we got a couple of different regimes at play. There's some wind, some flash flooding up here to the north of Rockford. The risk of isolated tornadoes is lower there, but it is still present in many, and it's present in many of these areas, but it's especially significant here across much of central and northern Illinois, and even arguably a little bit of northwestern Indiana here. And we're tracking this new cell developing northeast of Peoria, running up into areas near Evans. That's along the Illinois River, running up upstream. And we're still tracking an ongoing tornado threat there near Macomb. That's what Tony is on in the bottom middle. There have been questions about the timing of other storms into the northeast as well. So we're going to be taking a look at that here and a couple of the questions involving in and around northern Indiana. Yes, we're concerned about severe weather there. Ludington, Michigan, severe warnings tonight. I do think you're going to see severe warnings tonight in Ludington, Michigan. Ludington, I think you're on the west side, right? Yeah, you will. Well, I don't know if you will. The risk is lower now because of the stratiform rain. I think the risk of severe warnings for damaging wind-producing thunderstorms is going to be greater south of Muskegon, because these storms are going to come through with a little more gusto. There's a lot more interference. I think as far north as Ludington, you're in a better spot, which is good news. And you'll just have some rain, maybe a few rumbles of thunder in Ludington and points north. The AccuWeather Network is going to be right back. Yeah, so that's the theme for Michigan. The farther southwest you are, the greater the risk will be. The farther north you are, it's going to be a rainy night at times, but not a terrible situation there near and north of Ludington. Let's see what else is going on here. Looks like locally, I'm a volunteer firefighter here, and locally some reports of trees and wires down in parts of Center County, PA. With strong storms moving through the area, we can take a quick look at that here. Some of you are in the northeast, and severe warnings in progress here into areas around the State College area. Selfishly looking in that area, that's where AccuWeather headquarters is, down into Huntington County of PA, Mount Union, Huntington itself, northern parts of the area from Bedford into Fulton County under severe thunderstorm threats, down into Allegheny County of Maryland, down into Mineral County of West Virginia, and Hampshire County as well. and then down into areas like Hardee County, West Virginia, down into Petersburg, Elkins, and then more storms all the way down into the mountains of southern West Virginia as well. Look out there in Snowshoe, Pocahontas County, Webster County. Strong storms firing up here. They're not as large, but they are intense. And we have a new warning within we got a destructive severe thunderstorm warning for part of Long Island. That's not going to be good. The high rent district here facing some fierce winds. Hopefully the insurance policies are in place here in parts of the Hamptons. Central Suffolk County, potential for 80-mile-per-hour winds racing across the Sound into Shoreham. So, again, we're dealing with some nasty, nasty storms that are rolling through. I want to remove the lightning, but these storms have been sustaining themselves, and there's less friction over water. So these storms are bringing some gusty, gusty winds into the north side, the Sound side of Long Island here, near the Long Island Sound, and that's going to continue to blitz all the way down to Brookhaven there. So it's kind of out into the eastern half of Long Island, right through the central part. Geographically, it may feel more like the east central part of Suffolk County, with a gusty storm potential for 80-mile-per-hour winds with that cell. Nasty, nasty stuff out there in an area with some pretty significant population and also some high-end real estate for what that is worth. All right, let's take you. We do have a tornado warning now on that cell that we were just talking about with Guy, that new upward trending storm taking you into the Springfield radar site here. We can take a look at the velocity scan. We are in a brief commercial break here on the AccuWeather Network still. Dew point of 70. Well, the dew point is way, way up there in South Bend, Indiana. Worcester, Mass. Any risk of tornadoes in Worcester, Mass? I would say generally no. We'll look at that in a moment here. But we're beginning to see a little bit more of a couplet. It's not a very strong one, but a couplet nonetheless. Inbound, outbound. There's your area of some rotation. We're looking at this from south to north from the perspective of the Lincoln, Illinois radar site. And we can look west into the area near Macomb. Also still facing some risk for a tornado here as well. We're going to jump up into the area near Worcester, Mass. in just a moment. I don't think we're going to see much up there, though, frankly. But there's the area of rotation here from the Davenport radar site. So this is the McDonough County, Illinois tornado warning, new tornado warning for Marshall County of Illinois, and the population with the new one. More trees and wires down, State College, PA. Yeah, you're fine in Worcester. No worries in Worcester. Later tonight, there could be a thunderstorm, late tonight, but the risk is going to be much lower for you in Worcester, Massachusetts. All right. So that's good news there, Worcester. The new tornado warning for 11,000 people here along the Illinois River. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. Looking down at the bottom of the screen, a couple of photogenic wall clouds. I don't know if they're the same one from different perspectives or not. Mel, do you know where Brandon is located? I know J-Jack is on the storm in McDonough County. I suspect. Okay, sorry, that's fine. Okay, I think that is the same storm. North Henderson. Yeah. All right, let me do a quick search here for North Henderson. I know I saw Henderson on the map. I want to see if these are both of the same storm or not. He's in Mercer County. I think he's on that other cell. This is kind of nice to have eyes on both of these storms. It's North Henderson, northwest of Galesburg. Oh, he's even farther west. He's on a separate cell. That's right. He's up this way. That's a pretty photogenic looking shot from him. From one of these other storms in the area. But let's tell you what we can say with more confidence. Is he still in North Henderson or has he moved, Mel? I'm a little curious. Okay, all right. That's fine. Thank you. Either way, pretty good looking wall cloud there from his perspective in west central Illinois. Aaron J-Jack is on another storm that we're going to be looking at. But before we jump into that, I want to at least... He's in Macomb now? Brandon is? Oh, Tony is. Yeah. Okay, Tony and Aaron, they're both in that Macomb area. Before we jump to that, I just want to address briefly this newer warning. This is the same cell that we talked about with Guy Pearson, as he had concerns about this becoming tornadic. And we are beginning to see some outbound versus inbound. So there is some some rotation here with this storm, and the Weather Service issued a tornado warning for parts of Marshall and northern Woodford County, and this is in effect here for 11 to 12,000 people here in north central parts of Illinois. Before we go to Tony, just very, very, very briefly, I wanted to acknowledge the central Long Island, east central Long Island cell. 80-mile-per-hour wind gust potential possible into the area of Suffolk County, east of Islip. Not going to hit Islip as hard. Shoreham to Ridge to South Manor, down into areas around the Hamptons there, West Hampton Beach, and east of Bayberry Dunes. Nasty stuff there. Bellevue Beach, look out. Very strong winds with this cell that has just crossed the Long Island Sound. All right, now it is time to get to AccuWeather meteorologist and storm chaser Tony Lawback. Tony, I didn't mean to put you on ice. I just know that those were a couple of concerns that I briefly wanted to mention. But it looks like a pretty good-looking wall cloud associated with this storm in Macomb. What are you seeing right now?
Well, I'm buried in the rain. I want to make a quick acknowledgement to those in the chat who were concerned about me. I turned on a road that was not a road. It was a bunch of rocks and ruts in the water, but that's why you get a four-wheel drive car, folks. You chase with what the equipment you got. But I made it out. I'm on the east side of Macomb, heading east right now. We're buried in the storm right now. This obviously, we've transitioned a little bit from that isolated supercell we were watching back further to the west. We're now in more of a linear mode right now. That probably means we're going to see the tornado threat decreasing just a little bit here with this, despite the ongoing tornado warning, which does continue for Macomb until 5:15. So we do still have some concerns for rotation in these storms, but right now we're kind of transitioning to a linear mode. Unfortunately, I'm not sure logistically I'm going to be able to make it up further to that Peoria storm that's developed and more isolated further up the road. Unfortunately, I just don't see that like being a thing I'm going to be able to do. So I'm going to kind of have to work with what I've got here, which is still producing some issues. You just saw a report that's probably going to pop up on your reports, Jeff, there on the southwest side of town, some tree limbs and branches down. That actually, I'm going to call that suspicious because it was a very concentrated area there on the southwest side of town on the road I was on, where there were a lot of branches down in a yard and a very large limb in the street, which indicates to me it was fairly fresh. I would imagine if that was from previous storms last night, they would have cleaned that up. So that is fairly fresh. But that was the only real area I saw any kind of wind damage. So, call it what you will, but that certainly is kind of suspicious when you see just kind of an area that has, some concentrated light end damage and nothing else anywhere around. Also had street flooding on the south road I was taking, so I would imagine that's continuing to be an issue, probably growing as an issue as the rain continues to fall there in town. So something to be aware of outside of the tornado is going to be the flash flood potential here, especially with the way this line looks like it's orienting. So it might be like some of these areas, Macomb, for instance, eventually getting over to Peoria, you might be under these storms for quite some time. So you start training storms, multiple heavy rain storms over the same areas. Flash flooding, I think, is going to be a growing issue with this line in particular. But right now, I'm working to try to get ahead of it, get to the east of it, so I can at least look back at it and see what's going on. But unfortunately, it's kind of slow going here in the core, and I'm not the only person on the road, as you're seeing here. So we're working our way east as quickly and as safely as possible to get back out ahead of this storm, Jeff.
All right, Tony, thanks for that report. And we do have some new news out of the storm farther northeast, up the Illinois River, up into areas around, east of Chillicothe, into Marshall County of Illinois. Reports of a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado located near Washburn. And this is I'm going to bring up the Washburn area. There's Washburn. So that was just moments ago. Let's take a look at this velocity scan. This is the cell. Oh, man, this is really ramped up here. Nasty couplet now has formed. We're looking at this from the northwest. We could do better than that here with Central Illinois' radar site. Big concerns here right now into this area. So an obvious tornado in this area. We will look at a different product here that is called the correlation coefficient. I just want to see, there is a very low signal here, which implies we may be seeing some debris. It's broader than I would expect. I think this is just noise right now. What would confirm a tornado visually like this would be a pinpoint blue dot. Some meteorologists or younger meteorologists might see this and say, well, look at that. Is it really the debris wouldn't be fanned out over half a county yet. So it would have to be a much more definite, finite area where there would be debris if we were to see it. This is not quite, that's not quite a signal there. That was noise. But here you can see a smaller zone with a correlation coefficient dropout. So there is a significant dropout that has occurred here. I don't know if this is too large or not. I would typically expect to see a smaller pinpoint for a correlation coefficient dropout because this is covering a big chunk of real estate here with debris that's been lofted into the atmosphere. Although this is being described as a large, dangerous tornado, it's possible that correlation coefficient dropout, I'm using different words here, I know. We're talking about the radar seeing stuff that's all the same size and shape in red and seeing stuff that's a whole lot of variety of different sizes and shapes in blue. Typically, you get a pinpoint, smaller zone. This is a broad signal here, so I'm not fully trusting it as confirming the tornado there. But again, there is visual evidence by storm spotters that this is indeed a confirmed tornado here into the area of Marshall County, Illinois. Marshall County, Illinois right now. Look out, take shelter. We have a nasty tornado on the ground, and it is, again, this is taking the shape of a cartoon-like hook, a very obvious supercell, a fiercely rotating storm. It's a particularly dangerous situation, tornado warning here, and you need to take shelter, get down to the lowest floor of your home there in Varna, Toccola, Evans, Porterfield, Pattonsburg, near Wilburn. The area of rotation is very strong, and it's moving through this area here. So we care about you. We want you to be safe. We want you to get down below ground if you can. And if you can't get below ground, if you can't get into a basement or a storm shelter, the lowest floor of your home, away from windows and doors, will typically do okay. Small closet, small bathroom. If you have an EF2, an EF3 tornado, those are the parts of a building that are left standing after an EF2 or 3. So I agree with you, Jesse. Yeah, well, let's check out the Barron button here. That's a good thought. And we are seeing, a variety of different things here with the Barron. This is the wrong product here. Hold on one second. Storm hazards. There we are. So we're seeing some big hail. And I think that most of the correlation coefficient lower signal, the blue, was because of hail mixed with rain. And I think if you hop on social media, I suspect there are people saying, look at all this debris. But just think about this on practical terms. If you have a new tornado, even if it's a fierce one, will the damage be scattered through the atmosphere over half of a county in 10 minutes? No, absolutely not. So that's why I was balking at that being a correlation coefficient confirmation. It takes time for that to spread out. But there is likely some debris being lofted. There's also a lot of hail out there, and this is a tornado, a confirmed tornado. Great view in Chicago where you can see a partly sunny sky. Brandon Clement, that's a really photogenic shot there from his camera. Mel, I missed what you said there before that. Okay, hey Guy, let's go to Guy Pearson here in AccuWeather's Severe Weather Center. Guy, in just a very short moment here, we're about to go to a commercial break.
Okay.
So I think it'd be nice. Do you have like 7 minutes to hang out as well after that, or I know you're a busy man.
I do. So that's
I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you. So I'd like some of our viewers on the AccuWeather Network to benefit from what you have to say as well. What's your take on that? I know people on social media like to. The correlation coefficient dropout way too broad. Do you agree with that?
So what I would typically agree with that. If the very first frame or two, it starts to show up, and maybe it's a little bit of the depiction in this. I believe a lot of it certainly probably is debris. We had a very similar instance with Andover, Kansas 3 years ago now, where you had something very similar to this, to where you really couldn't see. We didn't really have any rain in where the tornado was developing. So you really couldn't see it until it had developed and was already lofting debris. Okay. So it's not something that you see every day. That was part of the reason why I wanted to hop back on here. But it is one of those that, depending upon tree leaves and everything else, which that is the river basin through there. So if it did loft, a lot of different leaves and things like that, we are fairly close to the radar too. So, it wouldn't necessarily potentially need to take too terribly long. The northern edge of that CC that we typically talk about there. Maybe that's not fully, because that could be part environmental, but certainly the back left core of that, I think, certainly ties, because what you're seeing on the radar reflectivity there, that dot is a debris ball.
Yeah, yeah,
On
absolutely.
reflectivity there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, hey, Guy, I'm glad that you hopped back on, because we want to be accurate, and that's good insight. That's why we're a team here. And Tony has damage, by the way. He is in that other. While we're in a break here, I think we need to get to Tony as well. But Guy, do you mind staying? Well, can we come back to you briefly in 5 minutes?
Yep.
I don't want to jeopardize your time. Thank you, Guy. Let's go to Tony Lawback with some new damage there in McDonough County of Illinois. Tony, you certainly encountered some power lines down. Tell us about what you're seeing.
All right, I'm on Highway 41. This would be to the south of the town of Bushnell. So if you go south of the town of Bushnell, this would be east of Macomb on north of Adair. Several power poles down on the highway here blocking. Obviously, a state trooper here has got the highway closed, so I'm going to have to try to find another way around here. But I wanted to stop here real quick. Note that we do have some type of damage, whether it's wind damage or tornado damage. I don't know. I suspect it is wind damage based on kind of the direction. All the power poles are leaning in one direction. There's a farmstead that I saw further up that didn't look like it was that had taken any damage. So I'm suspecting it's wind damage. It's hard to say how many poles there are. I see two on the ground, the one in the foreground. In front of the cop, there's one down completely across the road, and then another one leaning, and I believe there's another one down after that. So we're probably talking 4, 5, or 6 power poles that extend down that way here, and I'll just quickly zoom in here. We'll make this quick because we got other more important stuff going on here. But again, this would be Highway 41 near New Philadelphia, so just to the west of New Philadelphia, east of Macomb. We've got power poles down, whether due to straight line winds or tornado will remain to be seen. But at the moment, we do have some damage we can visually confirm in this area.
All right. Well, we appreciate your eyes and ears on us here, Tony. We are about 45 seconds away from rejoining the AccuWeather network here, and Tony, we'll be able to show that footage again later as well, I'm sure. We are going to rejoin the network here, and we want to talk about what Tony has seen, but I also want to go back to Guy, because this storm here is a very dangerous one. And Marshall County, Illinois, looks like a tornado emergency is in effect here. So this is the first tornado emergency of the week, and perhaps of the month. We've had a few earlier this year, but we're going to be jumping back in on this here, and we'll bring in Guy here momentarily. All right. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We have a very, very dangerous situation right now. A tornado emergency. This is the first tornado emergency among all the storms this week in Marshall County of Illinois, as a storm is producing destruction and damage here. We have a confirmed large and dangerous tornado. This is a feature here. That's a debris ball. That is debris that the radar is seeing. And you can see this cartoon-like structure as there's fierce rotation around the base of the storm, and we are dealing with a confirmed tornado moving through Larose. If you're in Toccola or Evans or Porterfield, take shelter. Get down underground. You have a dangerous tornado in your midst, moving right through right now, racing to the northeast. Next up, if you're in Lonstat or Garfield, take shelter as well. I do want to bring Guy Pearson back in. Guy, we always benefit from your expertise, and typically when I look at the correlation coefficient, I'm looking for, just to bring our viewers in, a correlation coefficient. We're looking, by the way, before we even get to that, there's a confirmed tornado warning for the area northeast of this storm's path here. And the Weather Service is kind of banking on this, veering a little more to the right. It could become a right mover into more of the area of Livingston County as well. But Guy, let's talk about the correlation coefficient and also this debris ball. How do we know that this is indeed a confirmed tornado right now?
Yeah, I think certainly, looking at it when you're on reflectivity here, debris ball can show up in reflectivity like we're seeing here. The very first 1 or 2 images where that showed up, it actually wasn't connected to the rest of the storm. That's because the tornado itself was already on the ground. You can sort of see those two frames right there, and that's what I'm talking about. It's disjointed away from everything else. And then when looking at velocity, you can see that there's some rotation in there, but because it's lacking rainfall up above or debris yet, the radar actually can't see exactly which direction things are moving. And so it's one of those things, as it starts to wrap up, it does condense a little bit more. We get more moisture in the air, as well as potential debris. And then now we can see it pretty well. As we're looking at things here, there's almost two different types of rotational areas with this. Looking here at the latest frame, still certainly on that south side, but then on the north side, sometimes these will start to ramp up and really wrap pretty tight. This happens to be in a really good environment. And so, it is sort of, you have the larger storm structure that's rotating. We've got probably even some hail there north of Toluca, but then certainly you do have that debris ball and that tight couplet rotation there on the south end as it continues to move northeast. And this, like as you talked about, it will probably try to move a little bit more towards what we consider right of the normal flow of movement. But it is one of those that's turning a little bit more east of what they would consider just straight northeast. So I think that's part of the reason for the additional warning there.
And Guy, you heard me, in real time. My first gut reaction when I brought up the correlation coefficient here, we call this the debris detector. Is the radar seeing stuff that's all the same size and shape? Is it rain? Then for the math and science people out there, the correlation coefficient would be 1. If you have stuff that's all the same, it's 1. If you have stuff that's all very different, it might be 0. And as we get down lower on the scale, we're beginning to detect stuff that is a greater variety of sizes and shapes. What are we talking about? Instead of it just being rain or rain and hail, branches and tree limbs, and hopefully not building materials, but that's a reality of it sometimes. And Guy, when I first brought this up, full transparency, and I said this on the network, I saw a large area with a field of debris, and my initial thought was, well, I want to see the pinpoint small-scale zone where you're going to see debris over the specific part of a storm. But you've been doing this a long time, and you said it started that way, but it really fanned out.
Yeah, it's one of those that, especially if there's the storm, really grew rather rapidly because the updraft is pretty intense. So the more intense the updraft, the shorter in duration it's going to take to be able to loft that debris up. We are fairly close to the radar in this instance as well, so we get a better sampling of the lowest couple thousand feet. And, sometimes it doesn't take too much to be able to at least loft, whether it's, insulation, leaves, whatever the, case may be, up in the atmosphere to where then it is, seeing different things. Some of the north edge part of that might be environmental, sort of like what we talked about before. But, especially based off the first initial couple frames, for viewers in Pontiac and probably just north of there, I would too, when I was on a few minutes prior to this, that storm that was developing that we're talked about with the tornado now, it was over Peoria moving northeast, and had some concerns with that. The two southern and southeastern cells here, I would continue to watch those as well, and have a close eye on those, because those could very well wrap up as things are, they all sort of have that little C shape. And to be honest with you, it didn't show the tornado until basically it had already formed. So in any of those areas in there, make sure you got your eyes and ears onto the weather here, and make sure you understand where you are in relation to each one of these storms.
All right, Guy. Well, hey, I appreciate you jumping back in and even just hearing me say something that you didn't fully agree with, so you took initiative, and that's why we are a team here. Certainly better with your insight. So that's good stuff, Guy. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So we got three supercells in progress. This whole area from Evans to Minonk up into Cornell, Livingston. We want to show you Brandon Clement's live stream, though. We have an active funnel cloud in progress. He's awfully close to this. You can see the movement of this storm. Mel, do you know specifically where he is? Okay. He's awfully close to this because you can see it's moving through his field of view very rapidly here. The guy, it's pretty impressive little funnel there.
Yeah, and if you look to the right, he just sort of went around the curve, but there almost looked like there was a touch of debris to the right of the road.
Okay.
So it was almost like it was extending back. There you go.
Yeah.
I don't quite see it in that image there, but off to the right there, before he rounded that curve, it almost looked like it was on the ground there, at least for a little bit.
And what we visually see is the condensation funnel. It's a cloud, but there's also the debris circulation sometimes at the ground, and sometimes the condensation funnel doesn't come all the way to the ground. So storm chasers are always looking for that debris swirl. Do you chase much, Guy? You live in a great part of the country for it.
Not too terribly much. I sort of pick and choose my days. I actually last night, quick story, I was out doing some co-ed volleyball, got done, and the storms were just north of Wichita. So I actually went, sat in a field north of Wichita last night and watched that storm that was up by Sedgwick and eventually moved into Newton, Kansas. And so it was more cloud structure, lightning, things like that. Didn't get a chance to see anything. So I don't chase too terribly much. I sort of pick and choose my battles here and there. And as we're seeing this, it is on the ground.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, confirmed tornado. We're watching that. You can see the ground circulation and the swirl there. It touched down. It may or may not still be on the ground. Very close to Brandon Clement. Mel, we don't have the ability to go to Mel verbally, do we? Or to Brandon? Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. We're going to commercial break here.
Do we know where he is, Geoff?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I have a sense that he is. We had a locator from him earlier, but it may not have been fully updated. So I think my sense is that he is down either in McDonough or Fulton County. He may have booked it east, though. I don't know.
Okay.
Would you expect to see a larger tornado than that for this? We're about to come back from a break here in about 5 seconds. It'll be a quick 2-minute break.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy.
Yep.
All right, we were just tracking a live tornado from Brandon Clement's webcam, but there is an urgent situation in play right now in Marshall County of Illinois. I'm going to bring up the high-res radar data. We still have Guy Pearson from AccuWeather Severe Weather Center with us. Guy, we saw a rope tornado touch down. Is there any way to determine what the nature of this large tornado? It was described as a large and extremely dangerous tornado earlier here in parts of central Illinois, where this tornado emergency continues near Evans in Marshall County.
Yeah, typically you start talking large tornadoes, you're talking potentially more so of a rope-like structure, or not a rope-like structure, but more of a cone or something larger, wedge-like. Sometimes that's used if it's a really wide tornado. But that one almost seemed like, it could have been something that might have been on, potentially a different part of the storm. Now, this has progressed a little bit. It doesn't look like the rotation here with the last frame or two as we're looking at this live is quite as pronounced as maybe it once was. So that could be potentially the end of what we were seeing with this, or at least, it was still rotating pretty good. You certainly want to still remain in shelter if you're within these areas, but it'd be tough to tell and to know exactly if he was part of that or potentially one of the other two. With as thin and as small as that was, it could almost be, something farther southeast with one of those potentially as well. So.
Okay, well, that's good insight, Guy. I'm bringing up the shear track to see if we're beginning to see that right turn, which is likely to happen, at least some kind of a gradual, almost like your car's out of alignment, veering to the right here. A confirmed tornado. Guy, thanks for joining us here on the AccuWeather Network.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, good stuff, Guy. We are in a break now, but we're still up live on YouTube. Thanks again for that. And I appreciate the Guy hopped on here. We're also chatting on Slack. He says he would have agreed with my initial analysis if he had not seen the last Andover storm in Kansas. You can never say never with the atmosphere. We do have a new confirmed tornado warning. This might be what Clement is on. I think this is closer to where he was, but we'll find out at some point. A confirmed tornado right over Lewistown in Fulton County, Illinois, northwestern Mason County of Illinois, also under this tornado warning. So this is the part of the storm's life cycle for the broader storm situation that we have been fearing, because now we have several individual supercells that are rotating and producing tornadoes actively here. We have, 5 in progress. I'm going to press pause. I'm going to bring back the National Radar Mosaic here. I admit I haven't looked at your questions on YouTube for a bit, but we've had some pretty urgent things to talk about. Really, it's 2 clusters of tornado-warned cells. But if we look specifically at areas of rotation that could be producing tornadoes right now, 1, 2, 3, arguably 4 here, all in central Illinois, the northern half of Illinois. It's 2026, and apparently the areas north of I-70 in Illinois are not a good place to be for severe weather. I'm just checking out some other comments here. So I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. That's what... All right. Wondering, updates about Decatur, Illinois. Decatur, you are in the risk area here. There's nothing urgent for you, but because you're on the warm and unstable side of this whole environment, I am concerned that anybody in Illinois between I-70 and the current round of storms could face some significant severe weather in the hours to come. Now, one comment with that: we're going to see a gradual transition from supercell thunderstorms that are rotating in the next hour or two, eventually to more of a straight line wind risk. So instead of tornadoes, we're going to be dealing with isolated tornadoes, but damaging straight line winds. And for those of you in Decatur, my hope is that perhaps this will transition over to wind before the squall line gets to you. I think there's a better than even chance of that happening, but the risk of tornadoes is still present for Decatur. Nothing urgent, though, for the next hour or two in Decatur. Monroe County, Carlton, South Bend, Granger, Mishawka. And I was up at a wedding in the South Bend area a year or so ago. You're doing okay there in northern Indiana right now. We need to keep an eye out for late this evening with these storms rolling in from northern parts of Illinois. Chicago, we're getting a little closer to seeing some action here for you. Right now, this preliminary little burst of showers and some wind that will be moving into the Chicago metro, already moving into the western suburbs. I like the trend for you for now, in that that's not severe and it doesn't look all that ominous, but we do have big concerns still. The severe weather risk is present in Chicago, but there's nothing urgent for you. The bigger threat is south of I-80 in Strader and other areas here across northern parts of Illinois. That's where we have our tornado emergency that has been in effect. The tornado emergency has been abandoned and stepped down to a confirmed tornado warning. We'll talk about Will County here as the network rejoins us. All right, thanks for being with us here. Really, really good insight from Guy Pearson there as we were talking about the nature of the correlation coefficient and the debris that scattered across a large area. And, you know, he's got some great wisdom. He's been doing this for a long time, and he spends much of his career looking at severe thunderstorms on radar. I do that certain times of the year, but then I look at snow and other things. He's really dialed into severe and that is his expertise. And he's looking at snow at other times of the year as well. But overall, we got 2 confirmed tornado warnings right now. Earlier, we had a tornado emergency with a nasty storm that produced a widespread swath of debris scattered throughout parts of the atmosphere. I'm going to go back to the high-res radar data out of Springfield, Illinois. And this still is fiercely bringing some signatures of strong rotation. You can see that donut there, that conch shell type shape that wraps around into the storm there. That is your likely tornado moving through Rutland, Evans, and moving into the Reading area. Confirmed tornado. Let's go to the velocity scan. A nasty storm. Still an obvious rotation couplet here. If we look at the intensity of it, 51 miles per hour in one direction, 57 in the other, about 108 mile per hour contrast. But let's go to storm chaser Aaron Jack. And Aaron, which storm are you on right now? We got a couple of confirmed ones out there.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm on that tornado warning storm that I believe it's east of Industry, Illinois right now. We just had a tornado on it about 5 to 10 minutes ago. It lasted probably about 10 minutes. I was trying to drive up to it. A little rope tornado. It looked, like it was probably a weak tornado out in the open. It was on a supercell that was south of the main cluster of cells that started off this whole thing back by Macomb. A new little cell kind of fired up to the southeast, and I watched a lower down for about 20 minutes before it finally started producing a tornado. Thankfully, a weak tornado. Doesn't look like it hit anything because it was out in the open. But now I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of moving to the east here, watching off to my southeast for additional storms to fire. I see like a base here right out in front of me here. See if I can turn the camera around for you guys. Give you a look at it there. But this is another base here to the southeast. To the right of the road and then to the left of the road, there's a lowering there at the base. That is the storm that just produced a tornado moments ago. So right now, not producing a tornado, but definitely we could still see some tornadoes forming here as we move to the east. Still a volatile environment in place here across Illinois as these storms march across the east towards Peoria right now. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, thanks for that, Aaron. Good stuff. I just kind of traced your location from Industry to what it looks like the couplet that you're on, Table Grove. Very small community there. I don't even know if they're going to find signs for that, but I believe that's where you are right now. And then barely to your east, we got another nasty storm, confirmed tornado moving through an area near Lewistown, and this one, similar to the other, has a lot of strong outbound, not much inbound. But perhaps that's because there's not much precipitation for the radar to see on the south side. So that has been a concern with some of these storms. And again, Guy gives us so much insight there when we checked in with him. So this went from radar indicated to confirmed based on likely storm spotters out and about. And also, let's zoom in on this here. I'm seeing reports of a tornado in Ipava. That was at 22 after the hour. So 11 minutes ago, there was a lot of tornadic traffic here. But 22 minutes ago, we had a tornado here. That storm is still producing strong wind and near Lewistown. Take shelter, likely tornado in your area. I'm going to turn the reports on here. And here's the funnel cloud, wall cloud producing a funnel near Ipava. And then in Ipava itself, or Ipava, that was a report of a tornado that touched down 5:22 Central Time. And again, nasty storm there. A confirmed tornado in progress. Let's go back up to the north, though. We have another confirmed tornado. So if you're in Lewistown, in Fulton County, Illinois, take shelter. Take shelter up into Canton. Areas like Peoria County of Illinois, on the doorstep of Peoria proper, we've got issues there with the risk of a tornado, a rotating thunderstorm there moving into the Peoria area. And then we take you up into Strader and Pontiac. These areas here, I think the best bet will still be Springfield, Illinois for our radar site. And we still have an area of rotation that we can trace going back a frame or two. It's changing character, but it's still present, moving through the area between Evans and Reading. So here is your likely tornado. And it's a confirmed tornado. I'm going to bring up that shear track again. And what I'm waiting to see is more of kind of a right turn. I'm just trying to trace the areas with the brightest colors. May have been kind of two separate zones of rotation that have tracked through that general area. Briefly look out for new information here. I just don't want to miss anything. Over to the YouTube live chat. All right. So, all right. Yes. Somebody is wondering about Will County, Illinois, and because it's such a hugely populated area. You're doing okay in Chicago right now. There's nothing urgent in Cook and Will counties. We're tracking the risk for tornadoes and damaging wind later within the next 2 hours. But the trend is good. The trend so far has been good that there's nothing urgently upstream producing a tornado, but there is risk, and there's a lot of wind shear with these storms that are kind of ragged. They're not cohesively in one line. So in the Chicago metro, I think your biggest threat is going to come through between now and 7 Central Time. initially with this band. And if any of this begins to spin up, if any of these individual cells begin to strengthen, you're going to be facing a tornado threat. Right now, though, nothing urgent. Those storms are behaving themselves up in Aurora and Elgin, partly because you're a little cooler. You got the benefit of those storms earlier today. That's not the case farther south where it's been sunny. The storms that barreled through Chicago that restabilized the atmosphere a bit, they did not hit these areas down near Pontiac along Interstate 55. And that's where the atmosphere has been more stable and it's more primed for trouble. So let's take a look at this here in Minonk and up into areas near Reading. What I'm noticing is, all right, we're looking at this from Chicago's perspective. It's all about perspective, and now I'm bringing up the view from the south, which is closer to the radar site, and this is the view from central Illinois. There's your area of rotation. Look out, Garfield to Reading, Ancona, Strader, take shelter. If you have kids in the path of this storm and you're not home with them, I know it could be an intimidating thing. They know what to do. Just let them know what's happening. Tell them to go down to the basement. Let them know that there's a tornado threat moving in. A confirmed tornado near the northeast corner or the eastern corner. I'm going to see the county lines better. Where's the county line? It's like a southern cutout there in LaSalle County and soon to move into northwestern Livingston County. The area near Reading and the area near Garfield in Illinois. We're facing a significant risk of a tornado there. But just make sure they get down into the basement. They're going to be fine if they're in the basement or if they're in a small interior room away from windows and doors. Statistically, that's a good place to be. And again, these storms, they carve narrow paths through areas and they lift, they touch down. So again, that's the threat there that we're facing. There's also a zone here with some small scale rotation. Looking at the depiction of this here from the radar perspective, and I wanted to get my mind around where the radar is compared to this. So there's what the radar can measure outbound and inbound. There's your tornado threat moving through parts of the area between Flanagan, approaching Pontiac, and Rowe. That's a secondary risk of a tornado. Heading farther south, man, look at that footage from Washburn, Illinois earlier, a photogenic tornado. And we got a lot of rain wrapped around some of these storms that Tony Lawback and Brandon Clement are on. Down into this area near Lewistown and Canton in Illinois. The reset pulling out, that is northwest of Lincoln, south of Galesburg. We are in west central Illinois here with these storms, where there is some rotation that continues. And overall, zooming into the Canton cell, we got strong inbound wind, some outbound wind. Risk of a tornado there, that's radar indicated. And then the confirmed tornado based on recent reports. I'm going to loop this again so we can train our eye to the continuity there. It's moving through the area near Lewistown. And what we were noticing was this might be the rear flank downdraft coming in. The risk of a tornado is going to be present here in that general zone. So that's my take on things right now. And we have had tornadoes confirmed there near Ipava at 522 and a funnel cloud earlier than that. Also, we're facing the risk of a tornado a little farther west into McDonough County. You've had a rough evening here with tornado warning after tornado warning. I want to briefly take us all the way up into the northeast here, because I feel like we did a reasonable job of hitting those storms. Labette County, Kansas, severe thunderstorm warning. St. Clair County, severe thunderstorm warning near Stockton Lake. Look out for some storms later on. This was a nasty storm that brought some very strong wind through the area of Long Island. And let's see what happened here. Shoreham, 66-mile-per-hour gusts there earlier. Ridge, New York, multiple trees and wires down. Rocky Point, multiple trees and wires down. The AccuWeather Network is going to go to a break here in a moment, but I want to bring in a power outage graphic that Kayla Schuster made for us a bit ago, and I got a little sidetracked. Here is our ongoing power outage setup, and now we have more than 10,000 in Connecticut as well. But Illinois still, most of those in Illinois were from last night. Most of them from last night and early this morning, where those tornado and mainly wind reports last night led to lots and lots of outages. A quick look at the Northeast here before we go to break in the AccuWeather network. We're facing some storms barreling into the Susquehanna Valley. All right. Check the message. Thank you, Mel. Strong tornado likely ongoing across Woodford County, Illinois. We were on that cell a little bit ago. That's good. A debris ball within a low reflectivity hook west of Washburn. Thanks, Jesse. That was at Yes, we did get that. That was the storm that we talked about with Guy. That report there was from the debris ball 2205 UTC. So that is what we got there. I know you were aware of that too, but the Weather Service is chatting about that as well. Also, we're seeing a flooding concern near Rockford, Illinois. Getting good information here from Kerry Schwindenhammer, AccuWeather longtime meteorologist here, and he is a really good leader here on the forecast side of things, and pointing out significant flash flood reports here from the Rockford area, Winnebago County. Rockford is it's one of the big economic hubs of north central Illinois once you get west of Chicago. So that's some new information there. We're dealing with an ongoing flash flood setup here, reports of an inch or two of rain per hour. We still have heavy rain coming in, and just conventional wisdom would say you got more heavy rain to move into the Rockford area. Let's go look at the rainfall amounts as represented by a 6-hour estimate from the Chicago radar site. That's not what I wanted to do here. I want to go to this version of it where it's way better. And, and just as the warning said, an inch or two per hour, but we've seen 2 to 3 inches down to the south into areas near Polo, and about 2 inches in Rockford so far. But when we go back to the radar, still clicking around here. I need to turn the eyedropper off. When we go back to the radar, you can see the back edge of rain is near Freeport, but very heavy rain continues into Rockford there, and some of your basements filling up with water, unfortunately, in Rockford, Illinois, with a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. And now we're beginning to see the western part of Chicago's thunderstorms get warned as potentially severe. Damaging wind, the main issue here, up into parts now of McHenry County, Illinois. So the western, northwestern suburbs, western, northern DeKalb County, Boone County, Illinois, between Rockford and Waukegan. That's where the severe thunderstorm winds are located. And also we got severe winds barreling through Interstate 43 into Walworth County of Wisconsin and Rock County of Wisconsin as well. We are in a commercial break right now on the AccuWeather Network. When the network rejoins us, we're going to get kind of a reset on the big picture of what's going on. I want to check out some of your questions. Okay, thanks, Mel. That sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. Let me see what's going on in Virginia. It may be snappy, but that'd be a good idea. We get a lot of eyeballs in Virginia. Then we're going to go to Storm Chaser Chris O'Neill coming up in Virginia in just a little bit here with kind of a regional northeastern severe weather chase. But I want to go back to your questions here. We got 30 to 40 seconds before we're back. How bad will it be in Lincoln, Illinois? Well, in Lincoln, we're very concerned about severe weather. The greatest tornado threats probably to your northwest. I think what we're going to see as this moves into Lincoln, most likely, I'm going to circle Lincoln, and I want to loop this here. We got 25 seconds to talk about this. So here we are in Lincoln. So right now we're facing some tornado threats within the hooks of these storms. This will gradually begin to congeal into more of a straight line wind setup. There will still be a risk of a tornado in Lincoln, but if I had to put money on this, I think the most likely scenario for Lincoln, Illinois will be straight line winds with still a tornado threat, but wind is more likely than a tornado for you 2 hours from now. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are dealing with some severe weather barreling through Illinois this year, 2026. If you are in northern Illinois, north of Interstate 70, you have been the severe weather capital of the world. And unfortunately, we're dealing with it again. It began with Kankakee back in March. And now we have severe storms barreling east again with some rotation, confirmed tornadoes here in a couple of cases. And also, just briefly, flash flooding in progress in Rockford, Illinois. We've had 2+ inches of rain in some areas. The heavy rain continues to come down, going to the high-res radar data out of Chicago. The western suburbs of Chicago and southwestern suburbs of Milwaukee under severe thunderstorm warnings for Walworth and southeastern Rock County in Wisconsin, McHenry, Boone, southeastern Winnebago County in Illinois, with that flooding as well in Winnebago and Rock counties of Illinois and Wisconsin. DeKalb County under a severe thunderstorm warning. Ogle County under a severe thunderstorm warning. So the worst of this is in progress right now for Rockford. The worst of the winds moving away to the east soon. And again, the Chicago storms, we're going to be dealing with some scrappy somewhat immature thunderstorms that move through the Chicago metro. Look out for it at O'Hare very soon, near Wheaton University, Wheaton College, and areas like Plainfield and Joliet. This may be to our favor, some interference before more storms roll in. That might serve to restabilize the atmosphere just a little bit. Before we go to Chris O'Neill in the Northeast, though, I want to briefly we got people living in an area that's very dangerous right now in Illinois. So we are tracking some ongoing rotating thunderstorms that continue to bring a tornado threat. Areas near Strader, we're still dealing with strong, obvious rotation in this area. And there's the outbound, there's the inbound. Reading and Strader, the northern half of this confirmed tornado warning. Southern LaSalle County and northern Livingston County along the county line. That's a tornado threat, likely still producing a tornado. I'm going to turn the warning, the reports on. And there's a new report still confirming this is still producing a tornado on the ground southwest of Strader. That was at 5:37. That's 10 minutes ago. It's still moving east. And as we take a look at the forward motion of this storm, I want to extrapolate it for you and give you arrival time here. It's a damaging tornado according to spotters, moving east at 40 miles per hour. So if we take it east, I want to loop it though. I don't want to misjudge its vector of movement. In fact, we can use the velocity shear track here. Shear track to train the eye first. We're moving this way. We're beginning to curve a little bit to the east. And if we look at the velocity scan, moving east at 40, what does that do for us here? Running right along the county line. It's still moving north of due east, though. It still is moving north of due east. So 40 miles per hour. It's going to put it into Dwight in 28 minutes here. That would be 15 after the hour. So that would be at 6:15 Central Time in Dwight. In 10 minutes in Ransom. So that's at 58 minutes after 5 p.m. just before the top of the hour at 6 there in Ransom. Look out. We've got a tornado threat moving into your area. And that's a big concern right now, with a confirmed tornado that's still producing, according to storm spotters. Another zone here with an area of rotation moving through an area barely north of Pontiac, Illinois. Pontiac, take shelter between Pontiac and Odell along Interstate 55. Heading farther south and west, we have 3 separate rotating thunderstorms. Some of these radar indicated, others are confirmed, and we are able to see that there's probably a lot of wind, but also the risk of a tornado with this storm. Lewistown coming in hot, with an area of rotation that continues to produce a couple of areas of rotation here with this one. And then, again, some radar indicated rotations there in southeastern McDonough County. All right, let's go to the northeast here. We want to get to Virginia. And Chris O'Neill. Thank you, Chris, for being patient with me here. I really wanted to hit those tornado threats. Where in Virginia are you?
I'm in Middletown right now. I'm heading towards Front Royal, where there's a severe thunderstorm approaching the area right now.
All right, so northern parts of Warren County here, or parts of Warren County, Rappahannock. My cousin lives in Fauquier County there. So these storms are pretty nasty. What are you seeing? And actually, if you don't mind, Knobs, bringing up Chris's video so I can see it as well.
Yeah, so about 5 to 10 minutes ago, about 30-mile-an-hour gusts of wind came through, very hot still. But right now I'm in some heavy precipitation. It's getting to the point where motorists are starting to slow down quite a bit, and it's a very good precaution. But all in all, heavy precip, gusty winds.
Okay. All right. And these storms are going to continue to barrel down I-66. It's been a very hot day there, bringing current temperatures up in the northeast. We had some record-challenging highs in some areas. Still 95 degrees in Washington, D.C. Very hot. 95 in D.C. And if we look at today's numbers versus records, 96 in Philly, that was a record high, tying records in Richmond and Wilmington, Delaware as well. And it's pretty humid out there. So plenty of high-octane fuel to sustain these storms. Chris, what's your game plan at this point as these storms move through?
Well, I'm going to be heading towards Front Royal, where there's a strong cell that's building down there. And then so I'm going to head east and follow it back towards the D.C. region.
And Chris, tomorrow we have big concerns about severe weather returning to the Northeast. That might be a little more organized than tonight's round because they'll be tied to a true front. Do you have plans to chase tomorrow as well?
Absolutely. Right now, I've still got a little bit of planning to do, but it looks like I'll be heading northeast this evening.
Okay, that's great. I haven't read the email yet, so I hope that we can talk to you again tomorrow. And I have a sense that we will not. You won't have to wait for us to break down tornado threats in Illinois, because they will be done with it, and the Northeast will be center stage with tomorrow's risk. So thanks a lot, Chris O'Neill, live in Virginia in the Front Royal area. Be careful out there, Chris, on those wet roads.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, likewise. And there we got Bill Waddell's cam, a couple of blocks to the left of him. I think Bill is in PA. Bill, do you know where Bill's located right now? Okay, Mechanicsburg, PA. It's a familiar territory there in the Susquehanna Valley. And we'll be continuing to watch storms barrel into Bill's location here. They're coming in from west of Pittsburgh, or west of Harrisburg, I should say, through parts of Cumberland and Perry County. All right, we are still with you here on the AccuWeather live stream, and we're going to continue to track many of these storms that are pretty nasty here, moving into many other areas across the Susquehanna Valley of PA and down into other areas through parts of Maryland. But we want to jump, and also upstate New York, Broome County, Binghamton, you're into it now there with your severe thunderstorm warning. That nasty cell that brought 60-plus mile-per-hour gusts to parts of Long Island has now moved south out over the ocean. All right, we're tracking some storms through northern parts of Illinois here, and a new tornado warning cell here popping up into an area just north of Interstate 80 in the area near Princeton. So what will be the best bet? This is going to be a real close shot here for the Davenport radar site to give us a nice up-close view of what is going on. And here we are with some strong inbound signatures there. To no surprise. On the south, we may be dealing with some rotation there. So this area of precipitation, again, radar is not going to be able to measure any winds down here, as Guy made that good point. But the area of rotation here is into a zone where we're moving near New Bedford. And the strongest rotation here, this is your zone of possible tornado activity here, moving just east of Anawan, exiting Henry County, moving into Bureau County of Illinois. I'm going to check out some of the latest chatter and so forth here during our break. Yeah, so the Joliet area and Will County, we could talk about that again. That area here, I want to go to the Chicago radar site. And generally in this area here, you're doing okay because we don't have any strong rotation and another storm is approaching you. So this might be interference that may help to restabilize the atmosphere, but we do have concerns about severe weather in Joliet over the next 2 hours still. All right, just talking to some people on YouTube Live about the area of Will County, Joliet, Illinois, west and southwest of Chicago. The severe risk is present for you, and while there is a little bit of thunderstorm action moving in, the storms that you're going to face here in the short term, just a gusty wind, a little burst of wind, a couple of rumbles of thunder, then you get a break. There is still some strong rotation with storms off to your west, and I don't think that these little cells here are enough to really sap the atmosphere out of all of its energy. So we may still be dealing with some severe risks involving tornadoes, potentially in the Chicago metro, although you're in a better posture than you would have been if there weren't these little showers on the map now. And if you hadn't seen those storms earlier today, still a risk for severe weather in Chicago. Let's take a kind of a reset, a big picture view of our watches that are in effect and the ongoing severe thunderstorm and tornado watches that are in effect here. Cover a big chunk of real estate. Looks like most of the watch in Western PA has been allowed to expire early. But other areas, Oklahoma, Texas, into Missouri, and all the way up into Chicago, still the risk of severe weather is very present. The tornado threat is greatest in the areas around north central into northeastern Illinois, including the Chicago metro. The greater threat is frankly a little southwest of there, but still there is a present threat in Chicago for severe storms and even the risk for a tornado. So as we take a look at the ongoing threats here, this might be the best bet here for us for an assessment of the rotation here. We can look at this from the Chicago perspective. The area near Strader. Here we have some strong outbound, some inbound, and then a more cohesive zone of rotation approaching Odell. Tornado warnings, take shelter in Livingston, southern LaSalle County. Take shelter in Bureau County with an ongoing tornado threat as well. And numerous tornado threats near and west of Peoria. All right, and there's the view in Hagerstown, Maryland. A cool shot there from the Maryland DOT. Hagerstown was up into record territory today, and they may be again tomorrow, at least one of these days. I know they were in the running for a record. But we have radar-indicated rotation here into Fulton County of Illinois. Now, closing in on Peoria, unfortunately, we do have some big threats there as well. Let's look at this from the Springfield, Illinois radar perspective. We took a look at those other warnings to the north, but here's the situation further south. This is beginning to transition over to more straight line winds, at least from my perspective, based on the way it's looking. I don't see a real definitive small scale tornado threat. This very much looks like it's transitioning from tornadic to wind. And when I say that, you go back several frames, we have a small scale zone here near near Canton, with obvious rotation. The Weather Service issued a warning for that cell. It moves east, moves east, moves east. And then now you can see it's really gusting out, really gusting out. We can almost draw this somewhat, it's not a true cold front, but it's behaving like one. This burst of wind that's beginning to line out here. So I don't think we're going to see a continuation to this tornado warning in Peoria County. And honestly, I like the trend for you in Peoria. So I know that there may be some anxiety. You've had a tornado warning on your doorstep. You're going to see some strong wind. And again, when I say I like the trend, you still will face a severe thunderstorm. So that's not good. You may lose trees, possibly. But I think the stronger part of the wind gust is going to be farther south, number one. And number two, the tornado threat for Peoria is lower than it would have been 20 minutes ago, looking at the character of that storm off to the west. So I think that we're seeing a pretty good transition from damaging tornado risks to straight line winds. And Tony's on that storm. I think Brandon may be on that storm as well. And I see a lot of heavy rain at this point, but I don't think there's as significant of a tornado threat there at this moment. Now, with that said, you can still see there's a purple polygon. That means confirmed tornado, right? Well, the update to that is now in red, where it's radar indicated. So still, take shelter if you're in these areas. If you're in the area between Peoria County, southwest of the city of Peoria, if you're in Peoria downtown, I think you're okay. Just avoid the windows right now. Based on what's going on, it looks like you're going to have gusts to 50 or 60 miles per hour, but in Peoria County. But down into Fulton County, this was a confirmed tornado. It has been revised to radar indicated. When I look at the velocity scan here, I'm going to go back. Man, I'm not seeing an obvious couplet. I'm seeing some strong inbound movement, and I'm seeing neutral wind there. So if there is a tornado here, it's going to be into this area of the area east of Maples Mill near Radville. Goofy Ridge, there's a name for you, and near northeast of Little America. I think that would be the biggest risk for a tornado warning, for a tornado threat. My suspicion is, unless there are boots on the ground among chasers that are seeing something specific, I don't think you're going to get a continuation of that tornado warning either. I suspect we're going to see a lot more straight line wind out of this. And you can see that, I'm going to trace this again. You can see that razor sharp line there where the wind is racing toward the Lincoln radar site. We're getting a pretty good view of this here. Now, one consideration is the storms are moving this way, and we're only able to measure wind in this angle to and from the radar site. So that's a consideration that may, again, leave a few more questions on the table. But stay with us here. The network's about to rejoin us. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are tracking several tornado threats here. It is 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central Time, and Illinois is the main concern zone. You can see Hagerstown, Maryland, though, also facing some strong and severe storms. We are dealing with some gusty storms moving through parts of the interior Northeast. We had a nasty storm roll through Long Island. We have severe storms moving into parts of now, it looks like western parts of Cherokee County in Kansas there, west of Columbus, and into areas south near Oswego and Chautauqua and Edna. So severe warnings in progress there. near Stillwater in Creek County, Oklahoma, severe warnings. And also down into Canadian and Grady counties, barely west of Oklahoma City. It's coming into the city. Expect flight delays there in Oklahoma City over the next hour. And you're going to get some wind and perhaps some hail in Oklahoma City. But the main event remains just consistent with everything that, not everything, consistent with the flavor of most of these storms that we've had this year. North central Illinois. So what I'm seeing the Weather Service do generally aligns with what my thinking was, in that the warning here was allowed to expire. We're no longer seeing much rotation with that. This is a storm that's lining out as it moves into the area near Peoria, damaging straight line winds. With that said, we still have some risk up into Peoria. Tornado threat, take that seriously. If you're in Peoria County, near and southwest of Peoria, take shelter. But again, we want to. Oh, Tony's in Peoria. All right. So, Tony, what's your take on this? This really looks like it's lining out to me. What's your? What are you seeing on the ground?
I 100% agree. So I'm southwest of Peoria. I'm making my way to Peoria right now. Back near Lewiston, obviously the tornado formed to my south, and I was blocked between it and precip. I got winds that were strong enough to blow down the highway signs that tell you what route you're on. So we probably had about 60-mile-per-hour winds, a lot of tree limbs coming down on the road with that. And again, if you look at the velocity, especially back to the southwest of me, you see a lot of heavy blues, heavy reflectivity, showing some very strong winds blowing out of that thing right now. Without question, we are dramatically reducing tornado potential here, I think, and really transitioning to Peoria. I think you're going to
Tony, you cut out there just for a second. If you're still with us, we will rejoin you whenever your voice is back. Making sure my IFB still has battery juice, so it's not just me. Mel, we're on the same page, right? Okay, yeah. We lost Tony's feed. Sometimes we can say this in TV speak, like a live shot is dead, or we lost someone. They're okay. But we just lost the shot. Yeah. All right, there we are. All right. Yeah, Tony, you're back with us. Go ahead. You were talking about how we're on the same page. This is lining out. In fact, I'm almost surprised that the Weather Service still has this tornado warning for part of Peoria County. But again, they may have more intel than I do regarding reports.
In vortex, so wouldn't totally rule it out. My service is bad. I'm going to throw it back to you, Geoff, because I'm going to lose you again. So
no, that's good. So to Tony's point, let's talk about bookend vortices. If you're in southwestern Peoria County under the tornado warning, it just expired there. So they're on the same page as us. That tornado warning has just expired. But what is a bookend vortex? I just wanted to briefly talk about. This is a cool thing, and I think this is a good illustrator. If you get a strong blast of wind that is outrunning the wind in other areas, I'm going to draw these vectors longer to signify stronger wind, and then some, weaker winds north and south. What will that do? You can get this area where by default, if you had a pinwheel anchored just southwest of Peoria and you had strong winds on the south side and not so much going on the north side, that can actually begin to impart this little bit of circulation. Similarly, near Manitou, you could begin to do the same thing on the south side. If you have stronger winds on one side, it's almost like horizontal shear. We talk about wind shear blowing different directions, different altitudes. But if you just take it down to one two-dimensional plane and you have really strong wind in one spot and weak wind nearby, that can almost begin to get these little bookend vortices to form. That would be the concern. I think that's going to be your biggest risk later on tonight when this really lines out. But this has certainly lined out more tornado potential to the north. But that is a straight line wind threat, Peoria down into areas west of Lincoln. So if you're tuning in from Lincoln, we're still keeping an eye out for a tornado threat to your west. Man, that also looks to me like it may be lining out. I'm going to switch over to the Davenport radar site. How close are we? Springfield's still the best bet. So from my perspective, this is, again, a small risk for a tornado near Beardstown, Cass County into Mason County, but apples to apples, compared to other tornadoes that we've seen, this is primarily a wind gust producer with a small risk for a bookend vortex isolated tornado. Play it safe, northern Cass County, southern Mason County. There's a tornado warning for you just to play it safe, but my tone's going to be very different for those of you to the north, up to the north of Pontiac, because this is not a bookend vortex. These are actual rotating thunderstorms that are separate. You can see they have a different character. They're not interfered with by many other storms. And here you can see this strong hook. In both of these cases, we have independent thunderstorms that will be bringing the risk for an isolated tornado to move through both of these areas here. And the velocity scan giving us a stronger signal for Odell. I'm looking at this from the Chicago radar site, inbound, outbound. We may be dealing with a tornado in the Odell area right now. So this is in Livingston County along Interstate 55 in Illinois. That's your tornado threat right now. And then to the west, Ransom and Verona. There you have strong outbound wind. By default, there's not much for the radar to measure to the south because I don't think it's raining there. But a lot of the time, the tornado is going to be on the south side of the storm where there may not be much rain. So there's your risk of a tornado here, approximately that area here near Kinsman, with the risk there into other parts of Grundy County. I'm going to bring up this other wild-looking correlation coefficient product. Do we see any debris? It's loading. It's loading. I think. Making sure this is the right radar site. Uh-oh. I may have frozen the computer here. All right, there we are. I'm going to try it again. Correlation coefficient. All right, there's a debris ball. Or there is a debris lofted up here south of Ransom, and there's a brand new tornado warning for this. So this is a concern. This is a concern. We have debris lofted into the atmosphere again along the LaSalle and Livingston County line. So this small scale warning where it's not even really raining, that is an area where we are likely dealing with a confirmed tornado. The velocity scan is going to be underwhelming. Strong outbound wind. You can't even see it on the south side. This is very similar to what we saw with Guy. I learned a lot when I talked to Guy. There, again, I'm going to go back and we're going to see a small debris signature there from nothing. And if you're just joining us, you're like, what the heck is this? But this looks chaotic. This is a measure of, is the radar seeing stuff that's all the same size and shape, or is it not? Red and purple is stuff that's all the same size and shape, mainly rain, maybe some rain and hail. But this blue, when you co-locate that with an area of rotation, then you could become confident that there's debris being lofted into the atmosphere. Mainly tree debris, perhaps. We don't want to see home building materials and that kind of thing lofted up there. But even though it may look different on radar and there's not a whole lot to see in terms of rainfall, there's your likely tornado. So the Weather Service has issued a very small scale warning. LaSalle and Livingston counties. It's southeastern LaSalle County and far north central Livingston County near Bud, where we're dealing with a tornado threat. That's the latest concern there. And then the other large severe threat here involving a tornado most likely is right over Odell. Strong signature here of a rotating thunderstorm, and there's a confirmed tornado warning associated with this as well. I'm going to turn the reports on here so we can check out a lot of reports out of this stuff. Ransom, photo shows a tornado near Ransom at 6:04 Central Time. That was 4 minutes ago. 4 minutes ago, and that aligns pretty well with when we saw that debris indicated on the correlation coefficient product. So it's a brand new report from 4 minutes ago, 6:04 Central. Strader, Illinois, 5:56. Multiple reports of a tornado on the ground on the east side of Strader. I hope there's no damage there, but that's a bad situation there. We want to see population of some of these places here. So 635 in that tiny box. That's right where the tornado is located. And we do have a tornado warning up north of the border, north of the line into Wisconsin. I need to get up there. It's right on the Wisconsin-Illinois line where the atmosphere is still a little more stable than the areas to the north that saw all the heavy rain. So let's get up there. Kenosha. All right. So let's go to the Milwaukee radar site. Oh, this is looking bad. Also here, right over Paris. So this is part of a squall line. Get rid of the report. This is part of a squall line, but instead of this line just being a straight up and down line where you'd have a wall of wind, it's everything but that. This is like a cartoon-like example of a notch along the squall line. So clearly you can see, I didn't even bring up the rotation yet. You can clearly see the footprint of that, the thumbprint of the rotation, and we're looking at this from the Milwaukee radar site. And there's very, very obvious rotation. The Milwaukee radar site's actually north and west. It's a little inland. So there's your rotation. Take shelter here if you are south of Oak Creek in Racine County or northern parts of Kenosha County from Paris to Summers. Paris to Summers, really concerned about this tornado for you. It's radar indicated, but it is still a concern. This is 264,000 people. Kenosha, Summers, Elmwood Park, Racine, and Paris. Very, very many people here live in this area. This might be the most populated tornado warning of the day so far for us, as far as I can recall. So the area right around Kenosha. I do think that the greatest risk, I'm going to try to trace the greatest risk. It's spinning up here, and I would not be surprised if this is producing a tornado, moving into Summers and approaching the area near and just south of Racine, Wisconsin. Take shelter in this area. Nasty threat here. It's primarily going to be a wind threat for most, but there along this narrow zone here from Paris to Summers, we can even get a little more specific, I think. The north side of Kenosha to the south side of Racine. I don't want to even just say south side of Racine. I'd put all of Racine in the significant risk area for this. South of Kenosha, I think you're going to be okay. But an area is west of Paris. If you're west of Paris, if you know your geography and say, I know that I'm west of Paris, but I'm under this tornado warning here in western Kenosha County, you can come out of your shelter if you're west of Paris. But if you're east of Paris, stay in there. Get down to the basement in Racine County. This is a big concern. A significant trend here between Milwaukee and Chicago. All right, I'm going to check something out here. Bill Waddell, I'm not opposed to going to Bill. That'd be great. And possibly, that's fine. That's fine. And if Guy's there, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. I feel good about where we are with things, but if he's still there. All right, Jesse. Yeah, South Strader, Illinois, large confirmed tornado there. I'm going to have to think about asking when and where those storms will affect South Chicago. Yeah, good stuff. All right. Yeah, it's going to be close timing-wise. As these storms ramp up here, the near side storms to Chicago ramp up, they're going to help to restabilize the atmosphere a little bit. And I don't know how these storms late this evening will behave. They're going to be, a couple hours out still into the Chicago metro. But the stronger these guys get up front, as long as they don't produce tornadoes, we'll take that as a win for Chicago, because if they ramp up more, that's going to restabilize the atmosphere and take some of the potential out of the late evening band. And this thing here may not arrive for a couple more hours here, a couple more hours in Chicago. The biggest threats here, though, as we're about to rejoin the AccuWeather network here fairly soon. The biggest threats are up into the area approaching Kankakee yet again. Small risk down to the south. Mainly wind moving into Cass County, Illinois. But a confirmed tornado, very obvious tornado that is large and has been reported and confirmed here, moving through parts of Grundy County, Illinois. Northern Livingston, southern LaSalle County. That was real close to where this thing went right through, with some obvious signatures of a confirmed tornado. As I tilt this, give you a little more, a little bit of a better view of things. A quick look here. All right. I want to see your comments here. We're about 15 minutes north of Morris. Mason. I'm not sure where Morris or Mason are. All right. We're going to have to rejoin the AccuWeather network here in progress. They're going to rejoin us in progress, I should say. And I'm going to have to hit that Wisconsin situation pretty hard. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We have a confirmed tornado moving through parts of the extreme southeast corner of Wisconsin, the one little corner that didn't have that heavy rain earlier to restabilize things. And as we take you into the area of Milwaukee, south of Milwaukee, we're dealing with an obvious tornado threat. This tornado threat is moving through the area between Paris and Racine, barely to the north of Kenosha, right over Summers right now. This is going to move out over the lake soon, but is not there yet. So Elmwood Park and Kenosha, look out. We've been dealing with hundreds of thousands within this tornado warning here. The initial warning, 247,000 people. And as I go back here, I'm going to loop this back. We can see, even with just the straight up reflectivity scan, we went from a squall line that was primarily north-south with not a whole lot of a notch, but look at this little notch that begins to break out. Watch what happens with this. This begins to kink more aggressively, and now you begin to see a little curly Q. And that's a tornado beginning to form in Paris. And then we go over to the velocity scan at that time, and you could see it was beginning to spin up. So a tornado beginning to touch down there in Paris earlier, and that was minutes ago. So now we're right over Summers, and as we take a look at the correlation coefficient, there is a lot of blue there. I'm concerned that we're dealing with perhaps some debris being lofted up into the sky. I think this, when we were back over Paris, was the sign that there was debris. And as we trace that, some of that debris east, a couple more steps between Paris and Summers, the correlation coefficient showing this is likely debris that got worked up into the storm, drifted north, and that's a sign that we do have indeed a confirmed tornado. I don't know if this blue here is from that or not, but what I saw earlier was convincing enough with the smaller scale zone that we have, again, a confirmed tornado that recently touched down. I'm going to see if we have new reports from the ground. This has been probably rain wrapped. And overall, this tornado threat is moving right through Elmwood Park, north of Kenosha, into Elmwood Park and Racine. Confirmed tornado warning for southern Racine County and northern Kenosha County. That's the big concern there. Let's go south into the Chicago Metro, Lake County. Now we're getting into the northern part of the Chicago Metro. Severe thunderstorm winds moving into the area here. This is a concern for damaging straight line winds. We have some interference moving into Chicago right now, which actually is relatively good news, because these storms are going to, once again, just kind of slightly restabilize things as long as none of them begin to spin up. Now, I have a little bit of concern about some of these little shapes here. Looks like a little bit of a hook to that cell. Is there any rotation with it yet? Not obviously. So that's good news. But again, those are the things we have to keep an eye on as these storms move into Chicago. Then a couple of hours away, there will be some more storms for Chicago late tonight. And our hope is, and our expectation is, that a lot of these may not be quite as much of a tornado producer. The main tornado threat is generally to the south. There will be a tornado threat, though. You can see there was a brief tornado threat out here north of I-80. That did not sustain itself. So overall, tornado threats up into the area between Kenosha and Racine in Wisconsin. That's embedded within a squall line. It's going to be a hard, fast hitter. And then farther south down into Kankakee, we have some clients down there who you may remember hearing from. We interviewed a client there that had to take shelter when a large recycling plant had a tornado nearby, and they took action there because of the AccuWeather app, the AccuWeather alerts from our SkyGuard team. But overall, into the area near Dwight, we're facing an ongoing tornado threat here. Still some strong rotation. Northeastern Livingston County moving into Kankakee County, western Kankakee County. If you're in Kankakee proper, you're okay at the moment. We need to keep an eye out for this storm. But if you're in western Kankakee County, take shelter. East of Peoria, also a risk for a tornado. I'm going to switch over to the high res. I do want to go to AccuWeather correspondent Bill Waddell here in just a moment, because we got severe storms in the northeast as well. And then down to the south, we're seeing more linear straight line winds, but still a risk of a tornado. Eastern Tazewell County into northern Woodford County, Illinois. Radar indicated. Let's go to the northeast. Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We got our good friend Bill Waddell, AccuWeather correspondent Bill Waddell in Carlisle. Bill, what are you experiencing right now?
Had that severe storm roll through within the past 10, 15 minutes. Some pretty strong wind gusts, and I haven't seen some leaves and tree branches down on the street. Signal's a little bit spotty ever since that storm rolled through, and there is a report of a tree down on a road just northeast of Carlisle. So that's what we're driving to check out. Not sure if it's ready yet, but you'll be seeing it soon. We just sent in some drone video from over Carlisle, Pennsylvania. showing those storm clouds rolling in over the mountains. That's always a unique look here in the Northeast when you've got these severe storms, something you never see in the Midwest. Obviously, the chasing in the central U.S. is a lot easier logistically wise compared to the Northeast. Geoff, I do want to let you know, for folks who are waiting for friends and loved ones to get home in the Harrisburg area, there is a big backup on 81 northbound. So that went on for several miles because of a truck crash on the bridge over the Susquehanna River. So there are people, I'm going to guess, stuck in their cars right now in that backlog with that severe storm rolling through. That's never fun. But again, here, the concerns with the storms that we're seeing in the Northeast marching through Pennsylvania right now, gusty winds taking down tree branches and power lines. There are some power outages reported. And of course, with those heavy downpours, there can be flooding as well. One thing I do want to point out, Geoff, not sure if you remember a few years ago, I was covering severe weather in Maryland, severe storms, and there were power lines that came down on a row of cars on a street. Those people were stuck in their vehicles, I want to say, for at least 5 hours. So when we're telling people about severe weather risks anywhere across the country, especially in the Northeast, when you've got a lot of trees, you got a lot of hilly, mountainous terrain, you know, some people may think it's not that big of a deal. I've been through plenty of these. I'm still going to drive home. I'm not going to wait in the parking lot or wait at work a few minutes. I can tell you, I've seen a number of situations where it really is best to play it safe and stay at home. I was talking with those people stuck in their cars. We were shouting at each other from quite a distance, I remember, because they were just stuck there for hours waiting for the utility crews. That's just one of the hazards you've got to think about when you have storms like that coming through an area like this part of the Northeast. Tree branches, tree limbs coming down, and then power lines coming down. Never fun.
Yeah, well, it's well said, Bill. I appreciate that. And, you know, as you were talking, I brought up PA511PA.com, and they are indicating, PennDOT indicating that they have reopened I-81 northbound, and I think all lanes are open again on I-81 northbound. But they're still doing vehicle recovery work. It's on, as you've mentioned, right on the bridge, on the east side of the bridge there. It looks like it was on the Harrisburg side, right over, maybe right over Front Street for the most part. So that's a tricky spot there, I-81 in Harrisburg, and man, it can get messy. Thanks for that report there, Bill. We appreciate it. It's always good to see you, my friend.
Absolutely.
Are you back with us tomorrow?
Absolutely, Geoff, and you may be able to see that video that's rolling of the drone video, seeing those storms coming over the mountains. That's great. So this is what people in southeastern Pennsylvania, this is what you need to be prepared for. I was telling you earlier, I was in the Allentown area where people were at the splash pads before the storms. I haven't made it to Allentown yet. The real feel was 104 degrees out there. So people were trying to cool down, but this is exactly what you've got to look out for. Storms coming your way. We know that there are World Cup fan events in the Philadelphia area this afternoon. Stay alert. Make sure you got the AccuWeather app on because those storms are headed your way. Philadelphia and the Allentown area coming up next.
All right. Good advice there, Bill. I appreciate that. We are continuing to track a large area with severe weather. Now, the western suburbs of D.C. also under severe thunderstorm warnings. Large, sizable severe thunderstorm warnings from Front Royal down into Fauquier County. Other areas near Middleburg and Purcellville and Loudoun County. Montgomery County, Maryland, under severe thunderstorm warnings. A lot of people affected by this here. And these are large warnings because of the high confidence. We got mid-90s today in D.C. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We're tracking severe weather moving into the Baltimore and D.C. metro here within the hour. Temperatures have been in the mid-90s in some of these areas. High confidence that these storms will continue to encounter high-octane fuel moving down from the Piedmont into D.C. and into areas like Baltimore. They're right now moving through Front Royal and areas near the Blue Ridge. We just heard from Bill Waddell in Harrisburg. Conditions there pretty nasty with severe weather in progress there, moving into Harrisburg right now, into Dauphin County, up into the Poconos and areas around Susquehanna County of PA and Bradford County. Severe thunderstorms looking out there into New Milford, PA, and Wyoming and Lackawanna County as well. And also a nasty storm moving through Binghamton now to the north into Broome and eastern and parts of Broome County and Shenango County as well. These will be moving into parts of North Jersey and the New York metro late this evening into the early part of the overnight. They'll begin to lose some of their steam, but they'll be with us here for several more hours. And the biggest concern on the map here is actually going to take us farther west, back into more of the Midwest. We have a confirmed tornado, according to radar data, that's given us a really convincing look of an area of rotation that has now moved it's almost offshore, Racine to North Bay. Tornado warning for you. Wind point, possible tornado. This will become a waterspout probably as it continues to move out over Lake Michigan. Chicago, you have a thunderstorm that's not quite severe moving through your area right now. That'll be blitzing out over the lake and then down into areas around Morris. Here is your main severe risk area for the whole country, moving down into an area near Grundy. I want to get up to the Chicago radar site. Nasty storms here, confirmed tornadoes in progress here, especially in Livingston County, Illinois. That's a Livingston County tornado confirmed likely. We've also had reports here elsewhere into Ransom in the last period of time. Again, those are the areas moving into western parts of Kankakee County. Also a tornado warning in Woodford County, Illinois. All right, we just sent the AccuWeather Network to break. Beardstown, southeast of, east of Beardstown. This, again, is still being warned as potentially tornadic. I want to look at this. A lot of the environment down this way is becoming more straight line winds. We're getting a pretty darn good look at this here from the radar. And man, I see a lot of straight line winds coming toward the radar site. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I wonder if this little filament of outbound, if that's the residual motivation for what was once a slightly more significant tornado threat. Not necessarily. It looks like that is the product of a cell merger. So as we look at this, some individual cells moving north. I'm actually back in time a little bit. This moving east. So the interaction between the two, spinning up a very transient zone of brief rotation or quasi-rotation up near the Kilbourne area in Mason County of Illinois. I really think most of this is going to be straight line winds down there east of Beardstown. But our main concern is to the north and other areas here near and west of Kankakee. This is the main event. This is the main event here regarding tornado threats in the distant southern suburbs of Chicago, down into Joliet and Kankakee. Okay. So we're dealing with, I was just reading some of your comments there, Jesse, in our YouTube live chat. We're all in a commercial break, and just forgive me for kind of collecting my thoughts here. I want to make sure that we're getting to some of your questions. Somebody wondering, has this passed Summers and Racine? We're talking about the Wisconsin cell. Yes, I'm hedging my words. I really think that this is through Racine right now. I know it's raining really hard, but as we track the velocity couplet, it's moving out over the water right now. So I would give it just 3 more minutes and then come out of your shelter in Racine. I just give it 3 more minutes just to play it safe. In fact, the warning goes till 6:45. You won't need to stay in your shelter until 6:45, but I would give it a few more minutes, just a couple more minutes. This rotation is still awfully close to the land, and you know, if it's a half a mile out there, the north side of Racine is still at risk of a tornado within this setup here. That's a concern. I want to see what's going on down here near Zion and Waukegan as we take a look at the precip. Little kink there within the storm. What's that look like with velocity? And we trace this back, scrubbing it back. There's a small risk for an isolated tornado or water spout between Waukegan and Zion. It's moving offshore very quickly over Bull Creek Terrace, but that's a slight concern there for a bookend vortex. So very limited risk there near Zion, Bull Terrace, but north of Racine, in a few minutes, in about 2 minutes, I think that you can come out of your shelter in Racine with that tornado threat pulling out over the water. Into areas around Kankakee, you want to give it 5 minutes, just if you have, you want to play it safer there if you're along the lakeshore in Racine. I'm going to bring the Chicago radar site back up, and man, this is a nasty looking cell, this southern one, because of the strong rotation near Blair. And as we scrub back, man, some of this may be debris. We'll talk about this here with the AccuWeather Network. All right, thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We do continue to track a tornado threat well south of Chicago, not far from the Kankakee area. The strongest cell that has my eye that's still confirmed tornado warning is moving through the area near Blair and Reddick. And as we switch over to the velocity scan, you can see from the Chicago perspective, outbound, inbound, this is the area of rotation there. And as we switch over to a different product, the correlation coefficient, I think that we do have some debris here as well. It really looks like near Blair and now pulling to the north, this is likely debris. That little light blue, that's where the radar is seeing stuff that's a variety of different sizes and shapes, not all the same. So some major hazards here. Tornado threats continuing into the area between Blair and Essex. Now, the good news to the north, if we get up into an area near Braidwood, approaching Wilmington, Illinois, what was once a confirmed tornado has been revised to a radar indicated, and I'm not seeing nearly as strong rotation with that northern cell. We had strong rotation near Ransom. It was confirmed, then it was stepped down to radar indicated, and I really think we're beginning to see this line out here to the north near Braidwood. Still play it safe if you are in the area of Grundy County. Grundy County, southern Grundy County, south of I-80. Take shelter just to play it safe. You won't be in there for long. This tornado risk that was confirmed is stepping down and transitioning more to wind, but I don't want to give you the all clear yet because there still could be a brief tornado there. But the more likely area for a tornado is far to the south into parts of western Kankakee County, as we've been dealing with a bit of debris. The rotation couplet may not be as obvious right now, but earlier it was one frame ago, and this area of possible tornado activity here is moving into the area near Essex. So that's my main concern at the moment. Crimson Shark wondering, how's Friday going to be in Philadelphia? We expect severe weather in Philadelphia in the afternoon and evening. I have a graphic, in fact. Let me show you that for that Philadelphia question. I've got a couple of them. And again, the big message here, among all these tornado threats, the Weather Service in Wisconsin agrees it's offshore now. We have a couple of transient threats, but the one that I'm most concerned about is entering western Kankakee County, and that's on a vector to move into an area, maybe making a run to near Crown Point, south of Gary, Indiana, staying south of Chicago. Let's take a look at what's going on here in the state of Illinois before we jump to the Northeast. Aaron Jajak joins us now from Havana, Illinois. Mr. Jajak, how are things going there? It looks like a lot of these storms have really transitioned to more linear, at least in the general central part of Illinois, down near Bloomington and Lincoln.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Right smack dab, right in the middle of this line of storms. It starts just north of Bloomington, and it comes through to the southwest here where I'm at, near Havana. Actually, I'm coming to the town of Easton, Illinois right now, and then continues on for a good ways to my southwest. Mostly, it just looks like it's all severe warned right now. So yeah, a linear event more right now. Mainly a wind threat right now. We could see some rotation spin up here and there, especially at that leading edge. In fact, that leading edge, I believe is still holding a tornado warning on it. I believe that was that storm that I originally was tracking from way back west by Macomb. Eventually, I was trying to keep up with it and came across a bridge that was out, so I lost the storm, and now I'm stuck in this heavy rain, strong wind you've been experiencing. But we still have some cells that are continuing to try and fire to the south of this line. So watching those cells as they kind of come up and meet this line, that's how we got that tornado earlier back west towards Table Grove. It was a little rope tornado that came down, but it was on a little cell that was firing to the south of this main line and being ingested into it. And then that tornado came down, touched down to the ground. It was on the ground for quite a while, for about 10 minutes, a little rope funnel. Thankfully, it looks like it stayed out in the open and didn't cause any damage. But these storms are continuing to move off to the east. Heavy rain and wind is going to be a threat. I've hit a lot of flooding, a lot of puddles, a lot of difficult driving conditions out here with the rain piling up. So a lot of rain. Weather tonight. We still have storms ongoing that are marching east across Illinois. It looks like Bloomington. We'll start getting into it here in a little bit. Back to you, Geoff.
All right. Thank you very much there, Aaron. Good stuff. And as we take a look at I'm just trying to coordinate here with, I'm looking at two different maps here at the same time. The biggest threat here is what's going on to the south of Chicago, Essex. This storm that's on a trajectory to continue to move into an area west of Kankakee. Hey, we do have a second tornado warning right now, don't we? We do, near Bloomington. Okay. So near Bloomington, Illinois, right over Bloomington, unfortunately, we have a tornado warning. Let's take a look at this here from the Springfield perspective. This is going to be embedded within a squall line, so it'll be a brief, transient, isolated tornado spin-up that could occur here in this area. And, the velocity scan is not going to be all that instructive here, so just the straight up, there's a little hook, a little bit of a hook here into an area near Bloomington. And again, this is right over a populated area. So unfortunately, we have some big concerns over Bloomington, northern parts of McLean County, tornado warning in effect. This is going to be a brief, isolated tornadic spin-up that might occur within the squall line, more of a QLCS tornado that tend to be short-lived, but is still a threat. And whether it's on the ground long or short, if it impacts your area, that's a big concern. Let's take a look at the correlation coefficient. This is seeing if the radar is picking up on things that are different sizes and shapes. And it does look like there was a correlation coefficient dropout. I think this was the motivator here for that tornado warning. Look at that. So it looks like we did see a brief tornado touch down, most likely just west of Bloomington. It probably, well, I don't know if it's on the ground now or not. There's no way to confirm, but there is still a little notch, so it might be a tornado that briefly touched down and lifted. But that was a pretty strong signature there for a brief bit of debris being lofted into the atmosphere just southwest of Bloomington there. And that's your rotation. I'm trying to draw just kind of the kinks here and the flow feeding into it. But overall, that moves through Bloomington areas to the north. And overall, as we go farther north, the only other tornado warning in the nation right now is the one in western Kankakee County. Let's see how this guy's behaving. We are dealing with some strong winds pushing into Joliet, Illinois right now. Severe thunderstorm warning for the southern suburbs of Chicago into Will County. So this is what we were kind of preparing for in the Chicago metro. Strong straight line winds in Joliet. And thankfully, the tornado threat's more limited for you, but there is still a tornado threat there. A couple counties south into western Kankakee County over Essex. So this is the main, this is the biggest threat here of any sustained nature right now in the nation. And the Weather Service has updated that to a radar-indicated tornado warning with the new cutout there. So we have lost the confirmed tag. It's now radar-indicated as it moves into western Kankakee County. That warning runs for 8 more minutes. So we're going to soon be at a point of decision whether the Weather Service decides to issue a new warning, but independent of their intel, we can tell you what we are seeing. So there is still some rotation here. The green inbound, approaching Freilings, outbound over Essex. So if there is a tornado here, it would be in this area here in western Kankakee County. Is this on track to impact Kankakee? You can see some of these tornado threats that have come and gone. They've been kind of transient, and overall, this one's one of the more sustained ones. I think it's going to pass north of Kankakee, which probably is good news for those of you in Kankakee who have been through more than you would particularly prefer this spring. I'm going to go back to the more comprehensive radar view. So we addressed those 2 tornado warnings in Illinois. And I want to jump back to the northeast, I think. All right, we have 2 tornado warnings, both radar indicated at the moment. But more of the northeast is facing some strong winds moving through eastern Pennsylvania, moving into the Baltimore, D.C. metro, into Frederick, Maryland, for example. There's Chris O'Neill's shot. Chris is chasing in northern parts of Virginia. That's a cool sky there. It looks almost like Clematis clouds, if I'm reading it right. But let's take a look at. Let's see what else is going on here. These storms moving through the I-95. By the way, tomorrow you're going to have a bigger risk beyond tonight's because that'll be driven by an actual front kicking in. But we are seeing a lot of reports of damaging wind, power lines down, severe warnings continuing for many. Moving through eastern parts of Pennsylvania into Berks County, Lehigh County, out in advance of the main line, or the main event, I should say. The main event's way out near Dauphin County, Schuylkill County, approaching Lebanon County right now, and then up into the northern part of the Poconos and through Binghamton into Shenango County as well. These storms will probably be reaching New York City maybe closer to 9:30 or so. And I suspect we may see some weakening. But for D.C., man, you've been so darn hot. Philadelphia, you were in the 90s today. And again, the risk is present for these storms to continue to sustain themselves into the I-95, especially through many of those areas. So here we are with the two tornado-warned cells, both being indicated, radar indicated right now. Earlier, we had confirmations. But you can see, let's give you the absolute latest here before we go to our break. At 6:27, so this was 13 minutes ago, live video showed a tornado on the ground between Dwight and Reddick. So that was not that long ago. That was only 13 minutes ago. The update to that, tiny severe thunderstorm or tornado warning now. When you come back from the commercial break here, this warning will be expiring at 6:45. We'll see if a new one is needed. And my take on this is that it's borderline, it's very borderline whether we have need a new one or not. I'm not just trying to play it 50-50, but we're still rotation. There's still some rotation out there. The area of rotation is outrunning the warning east of Essex right now. Let's look at the overall structure of the storm. And it's beginning to look, I didn't mean to do that. It's beginning to look almost a little backwards here with the curly Q. Unless a new zone of rotation is forming on the south side. But how's that match up with the couplet? The couplet is east. We are looking at radar data out of Chicago. Just making sure I'm thinking straight here with this. It all becomes mush after a period of time, but we're still in good shape. So yeah, the rotation area is actually leaving the warning right now. So the Weather Service is going to be confronted with that decision. Do they issue a new one for Bondfield and Kankakee proper or not? It's not looking as strong as it did earlier. It is not looking as strong as it did earlier. And again, the hook here is kind of down here. That's the way it's oriented, with just some other content down to the south, which I do not believe is a debris ball. It just doesn't have that look. There is some debris residual still in the atmosphere there from that earlier tornado. We do see Bloomington still facing some nasty storms moving to the east. Let's see here. Thanks for bearing with me here as I was just getting back to a coworker. We're making some decisions. And looking at your comments in the chat here, what time should the storm arrive in Philadelphia? Let's see here. I want to just extrapolate it instead of using model data. Sometimes the model data is, they did issue a new tornado warning here for the area north of Kankakee. Let's get a population on that. New tornado warning here for 52,000 people. Largest town looks to be Manteno along Interstate 57. And you can see with respect to Chicago, from Midtown Chicago, about 45 miles south. So we're kind of in the distant southern suburbs. You know, it's obviously going to be a very near paths to Kankakee, passing on the north side of Kankakee. But let's go farther east. Philadelphia, I'll tell you, I'm not terribly impressed by the trend here for these storms. One thing that's going on, they are downsloping. They're coming down off of the southern and central part of the Appalachians, coming off the Appalachians here. So you're going down in elevation, and when you go down in elevation, that is a process that dries out the atmosphere. And we see it all the time in State College, PA, when conditions are right for it. So we're not seeing as much here. Man, these are dying down into parts of Adams County. Still some wind, expect some wind. But overall, I want to get an answer to your question here. We still have, what, a minute plus before we come back? These storms are, yeah, thank you. These storms are moving at 40 miles per hour. So let's measure about 80 plus miles. So if they're really moving at about 40-ish, we're still about 2 hours from Philadelphia actually getting this. I'm going to take another look at another opinion. 35 to 40. Yeah, you got some time in Philly. It may be 2 hours from now. It may be closer to 9:45 when Philadelphia gets this storm. The argument for storms sustaining themselves is the heat and humidity. A very hot day. But again, there is some downsloping. So we got these competing arguments. And by the way, quick look at our severe risk area. You know what? I'm going to show it to our network viewers as well here. We got a lot of power outages out there. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We've been tracking some storm threats, a lot of conversation about the Northeast severe threats. There are severe thunderstorm warnings approaching Baltimore and Washington. Wind is the concern with this. A lot of reports of wind damage there, power lines and trees down. Just chatting with one of our viewers, and I was only able to see one or two quick questions there, but one was, when are the storms going to reach Philadelphia? They're moving east at around 40 miles per hour. One consideration, there's some downsloping. We're coming down from the mountains to the lower elevations near the Susquehanna Valley. Look at how these storms are eroding away east of Chambersburg and south of Harrisburg. It's not going to happen for all of them. Where you're still in higher elevation up to the north of I-81, we're not seeing that downsloping yet. They're still holding intact. With all that said, while there is some downsloping at play, we have a lot of heat out there and humidity. And I'm going to go to AccuWeather correspondent Bill Waddell in the northeastern U.S. Bill, I know you were in Carlisle, PA. Is that where you still are right now?
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. Was driving around Carlisle looking for the reports. There was a report of a tree down and also power lines down on the road in that area. I could not find them according to the local storm reports. That said, a lot of people here work quick. I've done storm chasing for years. When you've got good neighbors and people with chainsaws, sometimes folks, head right out as soon as the storm clears, and they clear it before, PennDOT or any official crews come. So that is the good news. There were some local reports of a tree down on a road near Carlisle, also power lines down over road. I did not find those reports, but I'm going to hop back on the highway, heading back toward Harrisburg, and again, continuing toward Allentown, where I started, because when you look at the radar, Jeff, I mean, those storms are just plowing through. I believe that's Highway 78 between Harrisburg and Allentown. So some pretty intense storms out that way. I can tell you, when these storms blew through, I'm in the van right now. The van was rocking. Some of the trucks were struggling, to stay in their lanes. And that drone video that we showed you a short time ago, that just helps give you a bigger perspective from up above, just seeing those storms rolling over the hills, rolling over the mountains, as you said, heading down toward the Susquehanna Valley in southeastern Pennsylvania down into lower elevation. So definitely dark skies. I can tell you the temperature has dropped a solid 15 to 20 degrees, within a matter of minutes from those storms plowing through. When I was in Allentown, AccuWeather real feel of 104 degrees. So these storms have a lot of heat, a lot of humidity to help fuel them as they're coming through. But on the back end of these storms, again, we're now heading east. You can see how dark the skies are if you have our dash cam up. But those temperatures dropping quite a bit. But it's going to be deja vu for a lot of people here in Pennsylvania, in parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, because this is round one. They got to get ready, because we're looking at another day of severe weather on tap tomorrow.
That's well said, Bill. We have a couple of quick graphics for that as well. I want to show you a few. So first off, our ongoing risk map for this evening. This has worked out, unfortunately, pretty well. And again, we're only about halfway through the moderate zone. You mentioned the storms, Fort Indiantown Gap along Interstate 78. You're up next here with that storm moving through parts of Lebanon County and this whole area around I-78 there into Hamburg, areas approaching Allentown. Nasty storms there. But farther south, there's a bit of a gap where the storms were producing wind, but it's not nearly as intense south of Harrisburg, south of Camp Hill, after a strong start to the storms. They are sustaining themselves well into the D.C. metro. So look out in Washington, D.C., a severe storm rolling into Prince William County and soon to reach the D.C. metro. We're still probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Philadelphia actually seeing a storm. And a couple of quick notes on the Northeast here. I want to go back to the graphics. Here's our risk map for tomorrow, and it's probably going to be a little more organized. It's probably be a little more organized with the severe risk. There's a good shot from Chris O'Neill, by the way, on today's storms down into Virginia. And then tomorrow, main concerns for the Northeast: damaging winds, hail, flash flooding. Those are your main concerns. Can we rule out a tornado? No, isolated. But then the timing, midday into the afternoon for the interior Northeast, and in the evening, I-95 to the coast. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow night here at the same time on AccuWeather. We're going to be live on the network, obviously, and also here doing an AccuWeather YouTube live simulcast. I do want to give you an updated view of our severe storms graphic for this evening. And the main event, I don't want to lose this, is in the Midwest. Let's get back to radar. We're tracking tornado threats. There is a newer tornado warning for the area. It's the only tornado warning in the country right now. That is the case. One tornado warning in the country, and it's for part of northeast Illinois. It's north of Kankakee, well south of Chicago. I'm going to bring up the Chicago radar to discuss this one. This area, the storm has been kind of cycling, rotating stronger, and then not as strong, and then stronger, and then not as strong. Right now, the area of rotation, and I'm just training my eye to this once again. We can check the shear track that this storm has been traveling. Here's the path it has taken. And the velocity scan is showing that, again, as I loop this one more time, it just helps me to train my eye on the continuity here of all this. Here's your zone of rotation, outbound and inbound. So again, it's a relatively limited area of rotation, still present. If we look at this numerically off to the western part of the storm, 25 mile per hour wind compared to 34. So we're looking at what, 59 mile per hour gate to gate contrast over a broad zone, and even tighter than that. It's not quite as dramatic. Let's see if there's anything concerning into Chicago regarding rotation. I don't see anything, which is good news. Here's the radar, and again, we've had a little bit of the convective action come through Chicago right now. There's a good little downpour, small scale downpour, a little bit of lightning possible. No lightning at the moment, right over the area of downtown or midtown Chicago. But the main event's going to be a couple of hours out still with damaging wind. But this is going to be mainly damaging wind, more likely than a tornado. We have to keep an eye open for an isolated spin-up, but most likely damaging wind late this evening in Chicago after these gusty storms roll through. The most volatile, severe area for risk of a tornado, again, right now, just north of Kankakee, on a trajectory to enter parts of Indiana, south of Gary. All right, I want to make sure that we're still on the same page. Go to the control room. Any changes from what we discussed? Or are we still all no changes? All right, that sounds good. That sounds good. All right. Well, I think that's a good call. We are going to step down from our live coverage here at 56 after the hour, as we are down to one tornado warning. The AccuWeather app, it's always live. AccuWeather.com. You can always get the absolute latest there. And I'm going to reiterate this here in just a little bit. But also, we're going to get down. I spent 2 years, my very first TV station outside of what I did with Penn State University was in KOAM TV in Joplin, Missouri, Pittsburgh, Kansas. Great place, great people, great station. And this is an area that I know pretty well. So southwestern parts of Cherokee County, northwestern parts of Ottawa County, and then also into Craig County. Severe thunderstorm warning kind of rumbling into the area near Miami, Oklahoma. Look out there. Northeast Oklahoma, that whole corner of the state there. Nasty thunderstorm with wind and hail west of Tulsa, west of Sapulpa. We got Creek County with a severe thunderstorm warning. Parts of Oklahoma City, you're into it now. Canadian County, Oklahoma, severe storm moving into Tuttle and also into the stem of the Texas Panhandle. Some big-time hailers will be breaking out there into Cottle and Motley County. The southwesternmost warning here, now a flash flood warning there in Reeves County of Texas. But bringing it back home, I'm going to do kind of a wide view, and then I'm going to I think we got to preserve most of the time for the Midwest more than the Northeast. But for our YouTube viewers, thank you guys so much for being with us and on TikTok. Thanks to Jesse for getting back to more of your questions. I wish I had more time. But yeah, we're going to keep an eye on we keep an eye on that as much as we can. And we're going to do this again tomorrow for the Northeast. Thanks for being with us here on the AccuWeather Network. We are going to continue to track severe storms just for 2 more minutes, and then we're going to change programming. But we will be doing another YouTube Live simulcast tomorrow, 4 to 8 p.m. Tell your friends, Northeast. We're looking at severe weather moving into the Northeast. Tomorrow's look a little more intense than today's. Chris O'Neill live storm chasing there in Virginia. And Tony Lawback and Brandon Clement live chasing in parts of Illinois. But we're getting ready for some severe weather to move into places like the Poconos, the Susquehanna Valley, and the suburbs of D.C. and Baltimore. D.C. is going to be up next. Damaging wind is the concern there. we have one tornado warning on the map here nationwide. It is in northern parts of Illinois, right where most of the action has been so far this spring, unfortunately. And it's unfortunately fitting that it is in Kankakee County, which is where really the severe weather season got going. But again, it's a radar-indicated tornado warning. A quick look at this here, the format of the storm. We have been dealing with a storm that did produce a tornado earlier, but again, weaker rotation. Treat this storm with respect, though, in case you're in this warned area. There is still a small risk for a tornado in northern Kankakee County and far southern Will County in Illinois right now. And again, as this pools to the northeast, that's the risk there. And an area of rotation that has my eye here, this area down near Altorf. I think this is the most likely spot for a tornado. And then the secondary zone here, there might be two areas with some weak rotation. Either of them capable of producing a brief tornado touchdown at any moment because the dew points are high, low cloud bases. Northern Kankakee County, southern Will County, tornado warning for you still. And in Chicago, we're going to get ready for some gusty wind in a couple of hours here, about an hour or so from now. Gusty wind moving back into Chicago with the final round of storms before a welcome break. Stay safe and use the AccuWeather app, No Weather Radio. Tuber, are we done?